Musical Talk, the independent musical theatre podcast at the Edinburgh Fringe. Hello and welcome to Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits and not This Roberts, as you might think if you suffer from a vowel disorder. Well, welcome to episode 307 of Musical Talk. I'm as amazed by that as you are. But today we're also on the third episode of our tremendous odyssey through the world's greatest arts festival. Yes, that's the Edinburgh Fringe 2012, where myself and David Kingsmill spent a very great time and a very long time going to see lots of shows. And today's episode is another example of the fruits of our labour. Although in fairness, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't very much of a labour, as I enjoyed it a great deal. Well, as you know, we've been theming the episodes for the Fringe this year, and today's linking concept is mining the past. Yes, all the shows you're going to be hearing about today are set in the past and allow the context of history to add colour to their stories. In some cases, they actually tell the story of characters from history, including Julius Caesar, but also some of them set themselves in famous times in order to allow the context that those historic experiences give them to drive their stories. Some of the shows are brand new, some of the shows are established classics. You can't say that you don't get a diverse selection here on Musical Talk. Well, they say time flies like an arrow, in the same way that horse flies like manure. So in order not to consign oneself to the dustbin of history, let us look at that history and find out about the musicals which have been inspired by it. Well, the first today is actually an odd pastiche. It's 42nd Street, which of course is a musical set in the 1920s and 30s, in America, on Broadway, very much a show about show business. But it's not actually from that period, although the songs are. I suppose it's an early example of a jukebox musical, although using the sheet music of the 1930s rather than the hit parade of the 1950s or 60s. Because it was only created about 30 years ago, but has that ring of authenticity about the past, but everyone accepts it as an original musical. It showcases the work of Warren and Dubin, an underrated but really quite amazing pair of songwriters whose catalogue is crammed full of hits. Let's hear how the past lives again with genuine enthusiasm as we speak to KD Theatre Productions about their production of 42nd Street at the Edinburgh Fringe 2012. Musical Talk.
My name's Daniel Bell and I'm the producer of 42nd Street and director as well.
I'm Catherine Hickmott and I'm also the producer and the choreographer of 42nd Street.
Well, I do feel I have the creative geniuses behind this show, and I feel very honoured to be here with you. Now, 42nd Street is one of the great classic shows, and indeed it's also one of the great shows that caused all the revivals that have been going on over the last 25 years. It was the revival of 42nd Street that really opened people's eyes to, if you like, the back history. Why did you both decide that 42nd Street was right for Edinburgh?
Well, we think. We really like all the old school type musicals.
I love you both already.
All the old music, and we very much into the whole visual type of production as well, in dancing, costumes. So 42nd Street, we did it when we were
in year 11.
Year 11, so when we were 16, we did it at school, and since then we've always wanted to put it on. So this opportunity came, we thought, Edinburgh, it might take it. We weren't too sure if it was going to take it or not, but I think because it's such a popular musical, like you said, people have bought tickets for it, and it actually has proved that probably these type of musicals have got a bit of a place here at the Fringe.
Absolutely. Well, you can do anything here.
Yeah.
And you filled up the auditorium.
Yeah.
You did yesterday as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
We had a sellout show yesterday, and today we couldn't believe it. All of the cast are so excited, and I think the musical section in the Fringe brochure is so tiny.
This year, much more than usual.
So we said, when we saw it, we were a bit like, we're not really too sure, but we're so glad we've done it now, and all the cast love it.
And we already think if we come again, we'll bring something in
similar.
That era,
What do you mean if?
Well, when we come back, of course.
Come on. Right, so 42nd Street, in a way, had sort of historical value for you. almost your own nostalgia, even forgive me, your exalted ages, if I may say. What is it about the score particularly? You're right about the spectacle. I mean, modern spectacle is hanging people upside down or having them walk on the ceiling if it's Mary Poppins. But this has got genuine spectacle, which is just people. Nothing thrills me more, even to this day, than watching a room full of people tap dancing. Yeah. So, what do you think of the score, however? Because you said you like the music. For anyone who knows that period, it feels like a jukebox musical, doesn't it? Because you've got
all the songs were obviously written before
We're in the
they
Money.
put into the musical, but all the songs are great. I mean, the orchestration as well. If we could have done, we would have brought a big orchestra, but because at Fringe, obviously, you have to scale everything down. You can't.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've got all that brass. I mean, nowadays you can have musicals. It's just piano and a guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, the music's great
Classic
in terms
sound,
of classic sound.
Fantastic use of muted trumpets, by the way.
Yeah,
that really underscores some of the comedy.
Yeah, there's some great parts for the trumpets in the score. So they had fun looking through all the trumpet parts and picking out the bits they wanted to play.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to get all of the parts down into about the 3 brass instruments that we brought up. So, and a couple of the guys they learned to play a couple more instruments for the show, which is brilliant.
That's dedication.
Well, yeah.
So what are the challenges for you both, choreographer, producer, director? Those are, if you had the musical director here as well, that we'd have the sort of the 3 big heads of state here.
Daniel actually musical directed it as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Was that you conducting today?
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord, man. Why aren't you lying on the floor gasping?
Well, but we did have an MD lined up, but he couldn't do it last minute. So my mum actually plays the piano for the show, so she's quite musical. So together we kind of did it together, and I'm quite musical as well. So I took on the challenge, but I'll just have a go at it. So
in which case I do have all the greats. So what were the challenges for you? I mean, as a piece, as a text.
Well, we said as when we first decided on the show that I've choreographed quite a few things. Like we do an annual panto every year, so that's always quite cheesy. But like we both love tap. We've both tapped since we were very, very young, and we said we'd love to have a go at it, have a go at choreographing it and everything. So we said let's do it. So some of the cast were more experienced in their tap than others, but all of them picked it up so well, and the dedication behind it. If they weren't getting it, like the whole cast just came together to help each other, which was really great.
Plot line as well.
Yeah,
great cast.
Life mirroring art, if I may say.
Yeah, no, it's just fantastic to work with such dedicated people. Like, because sometimes some of the people we'd never worked with before, and I think having worked with them now, we definitely work with them again. Like it's just lovely to see how the cast has gelled as a cast, like within the show and off as well, which has been brilliant.
And any challenges for you, either musically or?
Well, we want, in terms of the show, in the slickness, we want it to be quite slick. No, you know when you get that thing when there's blackout and the set just comes on stage crew. We didn't want any of that, especially for Fringe. So
oh no, there's no dead time.
Yeah, so we tried to make it. That was our biggest challenge of trying to tell the cast how we want it to look, and then they picked it up, didn't they? And it was, and the way they've how the cast move the set and how the music underscores it, and it all moves very quickly. That was our biggest, what we wanted it to be, the slickness of it. So that again, the cast took that really well, and they're a really good company to work with. So
what sort of tone did you set, if you don't mind me saying? Because, as forgive me, the book is preposterous.
Yeah.
A sacked member of Chorus Girl, I suppose, is the twist, re-invited back into cast to save show after leading Lady
not really
breaks
show
foot.
business, is it?
It's not my understanding. No, I've not met anyone yet who falls into that category. So the plot is preposterous and it's heightened. It's fun.
Yeah.
But when you went in and you decided, did you set a tone? Did you say, right, I want it to be pitched this high or this high? Serious, semi-serious, comic, tragedy, farce? Probably not tragedy.
Yeah. Well, it was hard really. There's some awful lines in it, isn't there? That when we were going through and we're like, take that line out, because it just was. They were like saying it in different ways. I mean, there were some bits when we weren't sure whether to go this way or this way, and we tried the cast both ways, and we say, how does it feel for you? I mean, we've gone for, I think, the fun of it, and the cast. Some of those characters like Abner are really heightened. When some of them, I mean, Karina, who plays Peggy, she's great because she shows her journey really well. I think from shy chorus girl to suddenly this girl that sings Big 40 sings shit at the end. I think so. We kind of didn't want to take it too far, but obviously not too. It needs to be heightened in that way, but we hope that the costumes as well would also bring that out with it.
Now,
the visual.
I don't mean this rudely, but there was a big old display of costumes on today. Because every time someone went off the screen, as it were, off stage, within seconds they came back on again wearing a spangly leotard or a sailor's uniform or whatever it was.
We had so many quick changes.
Yes.
I think every girl had 12 costumes each. I think in the show there's over 200 changes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because some, but
like
12's enough for Fringe.
Yeah, at the beginning of We're in the Money, when the 4 girls come off, they literally have about a second to grab a coin, put a hair thing on, and take their coat off, and they run on stage.
Of those gold ribbons.
Yeah,
because they're wearing gold leotards.
Yeah, they had
with tassels. Yes.
Quite a few of the boys also had like suit upon suit upon suit, so they might have looked a bit chubbier than
We've
they
got a
usually
great
do.
costume team, haven't we? We work with County Drama Wardrobe in
Wardrobe.
Cambridge, and we're friends with the lady, and she actually does it all to us for free. So we're very lucky. So she basically uses us as a test,
Yeah.
and then she can then use them costumes. Obviously, make a lot of money out of it.
We're
But
so lucky.
we're very lucky. We get on really well with them.
So that company again?
Yeah, County Drama Wardrobe in Cambridge, and her name's Lynn Quelch. So her team are actually up here, and some of their children are in the show as well. So it's kind of like
Is that the Paperboy by any chance?
yeah, and Molly, one of the dancers.
One of the dancers.
But they are, I mean, they're great, and they love doing it, and they do all our shows, and we love working with making sure the costumes, and when we're back at home, we do even the set and stuff.
We always say to them that we have an image of what we want it to look like, and every time it just comes out, and I don't know.
They know how to do it.
Yeah, they're inside our heads, and they just know exactly what we want. And
because this show's done quite a lot, I mean, amateurly now, especially by older groups, and so, but because we've got younger girls who wanted to really kind of give that bit of a sexy image as well, with the short leotards and things. I think they pulled them off quite well.
I tell you, they pulled off their leotards. Yeah. Right, okay, I didn't see that scene. But there is but if you don't mind me saying, I think, actually, I do think that sort of 20s look, is very attractive for men and women anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me saying. It actually heightens a certain amount of glamour.
I think the boys and girls actually quite get comfortable in some of their costumes, don't they?
Nice,
they want to wear them.
well.
Yeah.
But I think the boys love the hair more than the girls do. It's been a lot
I've got to
more
ask, from the
time.
choreography point of view, you've obviously got some people who are trained in ballet in your cast. One or two of the men were doing some really
Yeah.
You're Billy.
Albert, who plays Billy, he's brilliant. You can ask him to do something, and he'll go, yeah, and then I could maybe do this, and you kind of say, okay, yeah, let me see it, and then you go,
Billy
maybe,
Elliot, right?
yeah, Billy Elliot. That's really what it is. No, but he's brilliant. Yeah, he loves his pirouettes and his turns in seconds. But I think all of the cast know him for that.
But is that difficult for you as a choreographer? Do you have to give him things like that and then find a way of helping the others to meet that? Or is it that actually you can showcase him whilst other people are doing other things? I mean, how does one balance that?
Well, with Albert, it's really a female dance show, so being able to showcase the boys as well was really important to me, because I always think that boys are always looked on sometimes badly in musical theatre, like from the outside world. But so it was nice to be able to have the girls around, especially in We're in the Money, with the girls around Albert. So it wasn't too much, because they're doing fantastic stuff with their feet. So with Albert in the middle, I just think it kind of just lifted it a bit more.
I think it was gender equality. And actually, the only song that isn't, of course, is Dames, isn't it? Which is quite specifically, we stand up here singing about how lovely
with
ladies
hats
are.
and canes.
Oh yeah, well, a dinner suit does go a long way in my view.
But it's great to have the boys being able to dance as well, and not just standing singing as well, which is great.
We were worried that we didn't have enough boys, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because we obviously could only bring a small cast up here anyway, and the show is written for a big cast. In the old, those times when these musicals were out, they had big cast.
Chorus girls were to a penny. I mean,
so the boys were doubling up in onto ensemble as well, and I think it's worked, and we weren't sure if it did. So they actually pulled it off. The harmonies are so hard in that Dames especially, so we had to work on it, because some are better singers than others, and some are dancers, the same. But I think they worked. We worked hard with them, and I think they.
I tell you, who's got genuine stage presence, although he doesn't do so much singing and so much dancing, is your Julian, who's the director. But he just comes on and he commands is exactly the word. Absolutely. He's got an absolute innate confidence as he arrives, and you think, and suddenly all eyes look to him. So he really does. He also feels like the director of the show that we're seeing.
Yeah, no. When I'm on
he
stage,
has authority.
Yeah, when I'm on stage with him, I kind of think, oh goodness, like it does. Like obviously, I'm in my character all the time.
You play one of the writers, don't you?
Yeah, but it does. He does command the stage, as Daniel said. Definitely,
he's very good.
He's brilliant.
We found him. I've seen him before, and then a friend of his was in it, and I said, would he be interested in doing it? He came to audition, and he sang 42nd Street. And we're like, yeah, you can get the part.
I love that little joke as well, where he's singing one of the songs, and then Billy, who's a tenor, finishes the high note for him. The audience enjoyed that very much. Unexpected.
They've enjoyed that a lot. Yesterday's audience enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That joke.
Like every audience you have, because obviously we did a couple of preview open dress rehearsals at home. Like you find different audience find different things funny, which is good, because you go, oh, I didn't even realise that line was funny, but they laugh at it. So every
audiences are they're a different creature every night. They're the extra element in any show, aren't they? If you've got a dead one, you've got a problem as well.
Yeah.
The score, forgive me, it's full of what I think of as standards, think of as classics. Did any of your cast, who are obviously, presumably, you have a lovely, beautiful young cast, and that isn't often, I'm sad to say, the kind of song which is sung very much anymore. Did people come to them and say, these are actually fabulous? As you had sort of mentioned you love them yourselves. So was it a surprise for your cast? Or did anyone say, actually, this is so hackneyed and vintage, I can't really be bothered with it? Or, what was it? I'm always interested, because I think good songs live forever, just but in their own little world.
Yeah.
Some of them found it hard to pick them up, the way they some of the solo songs and the timing, but they I don't think they dislike them. I think it's been a good challenge for them, some would say. Like I said, we love all the songs, and I think even like going down the mile, people are singing Lullaby Broadway, or in the audience there's someone miming Lullaby Broadway I saw, and people know those great. There
was a woman humming next to me. Yes.
So, but I think they've really taken to the songs, and I think they are catchy, so they're easy to pick up, and then they're enjoyable to learn.
The melodies hang around.
Yeah. I think it's important that they know it as well, because then I want these kind of things to live on. Like when we all come out of our training, that hopefully these things will come back, so I think it's important to keep these younger people
going.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I start with Gilbert and Sullivan, and I work all the way through.
Yeah.
To now, I love new musicals, but I love everything that's 150 years old too. There's a place for everything if you know how to look.
I do think these musicals, the stories will last forever, because they're just about love or whatever. So whereas in the future, some of these modern musicals, with the current issues, whatever, will be changing, so they might go. But
it's easy to become topical. If you make yourself too topical, you then become out of date. Whereas this, I mean, it's loosely about the depression, but only in the loosest possible. It's really about boy meets girl, la la la, and
so
girl breaks leg. The truths of human society.
But I mean, they've like you said with the score, they tips the songs greatly, and I think they enjoyed the music actually, and the dance breaks are great. All the music, and they love it.
What about the I just like the style of singing, because I think the style of singing has changed. Although they're American songs, it's an American musical, but the style of singing, this is not the sort of transatlantic singing that you expect to hear these days. If you turn on the radio, you won't hear people singing like that. So it's actually learning, but it's not also the British tradition. It's actually slightly different again. It's early American.
That's one challenge I've always said that we've had, haven't we? Trying to get that Broadway sound, the open sound of and their harmonies together, and being tight as a company, especially in those big numbers.
That's probably one of our biggest challenges
to get. And we had a lot of music rehearsals, and we still do before each show. We go over a few numbers, just check those things are tight.
Here, don't you?
Yeah,
I'm sure
just
I've
outside.
seen you rehearsing here.
So I think we rehearsed around the back of some building over there early, just anywhere we can find. But the music, the vocally was very hard.
Very hard.
Because, like you said, the modern music, pop songs, even in musicals now, poppy type songs, is totally different type of singing, like technique.
Technique is as much. Yes, it is. But I think you've pulled it off marvellously. I have to say, it's a hugely entertaining show. Now, is it going to go anywhere else, or will you put it to bed and then start thinking of your next show?
We'll probably put this one to bed, won't we?
And start discussing our next
and start discussing our next one. We've got shows. Obviously, we do Panto every year, but we've always been involved in musical theatre ourselves in shows, but we've only started producing our own musicals recently, because they're so expensive as well to put on.
Jolly well are. I would have used a stronger word there.
Yeah, very. We took Little Shop of Horrors up here 2 years ago. That was our first musical we did together, and that was a small cast, just to see how it went.
When I say it's bite-sized, you understand what I mean in the context.
So then bringing this up, and I mean, we've got ideas, haven't we? So hopefully you'll see us next year.
Getting really excited.
So what's your website? What's your company called, and what's your website?
Our company's called KD Theatre Productions, and our website's www.kdtheatre.co.uk. So take a look on there. It tells you all about our upcoming events and what we get up to, and our history of the company. And that we've also got emails, which is Daniel at KD Theatre and Catherine at KD Theatre, that people can email us.
So people can write to you and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Splendid. Oh, well, I wish you every great success, both for the rest of this run, although I think you're not going to have to worry, because you've been attracting people in the mile, because, I mean, you do send your team out in their finery, if I may say. I'm sure I've seen the red feathers.
Yeah, we put them out there.
And
they change every costume, a different costume every day.
We're in gold tomorrow.
Keep them on their toes.
Oh, there's a rota for the costumes, fantastic. I suppose one has to go in the wash, doesn't it? No, seriously, I wish you huge success. It's a wonderful show. You're a wonderful production team. I'm so excited that, you've decided to grasp the nettle, put shows on and bring them up. It's exactly what we need in musical theatre, and I look forward to seeing you, I hope, next year and the year after and the year after.
Yeah,
we hope
thank you.
Watch out for us in the programme.
Yeah.
We should be there. So.
Musical Talk. Well, that was 42nd Street, and I have to tell you, I thought it was a marvellous show. I really, really enjoyed it. It was very easy to get into. As I said on Twitter, and you can follow me at Musical Talk Thos, should you be so minded. Rather excellent revival. Vivacious, but not deep. Toe-tapping, but unlikely. Stylish, but not to be taken seriously. But I can tell you, you will certainly have enjoyed it if you had seen it. I hope that particular group brings something new, or perhaps rather better, something classic, to Edinburgh next year. Well, that was early 20th century. Let's go back just a little bit further to say, the end of the 16th century. Yes, we're talking the reign of Elizabeth I. And I had the great pleasure of seeing Elizabeth I on stage in Edinburgh this year. Also at Augustine's, because there was a fantastic new show called Armada, the musical. It was set, as you can probably guess, at that period in English history, because Elizabeth I was Queen of England rather than Queen of Britain, when the Spanish were threatening to invade and remove her from the throne and to make Britain Catholic again. That's the Spanish Armada. Now you probably know, and if you don't, you probably have realised, that it wasn't successful. Which is completely unlike the musical, which was. After one of the performances, David Kingsmill and I caught up with the author to discuss the show. But first, he's very kindly let us hear a song from that particular show. Let's hear the opening number from Armada the Musical.
Writer of Armada the Musical. and it's something that's been in progress for the last couple of years, written, rewritten, premiered, altered, condensed and refined, filtered and so on. We brought it to the Fringe without the little slapstick bits in it, which I think have made an improvement. We're quite pleased with the audience reaction, and I don't know quite what happens from here.
Well, let's start with, you say it's 2 or 3 years in the making, or 400 years, depending on how you want to look at it. So when did you get the idea for the Armada?
Well,
when were you gripped?
Yeah, my son's homework, basically. And he had the subject to work on, so I gave him a helping hand with that. Thought it was a fascinating interest. Found a wonderful historical character, Dr. John Dee. I believe 1 or 2 works have been done on him before.
You and Damon Albarn are really musicalising him at the moment. So
he's a wonderful character. So we had to pop him in there. And what else can I say?
Really, it was as simple as that. You thought there's something here, and
Yep. I like dressing up, and so we worked the story around it, worked some songs around it, and away we went.
Now the group you're with, all age groups. So how did you get it into production? Is this your own company?
It is, but we all know each other through York Musical Theatre Company, and that's pretty well established in Yorkshire.
Good place for it with a name like that.
Capital. And so it was a case of putting the word out, see who was interested in coming up here, and auditioned and so on. And these are the guys who've come along and stumped up the cash.
Aha. Self-produced. Well, of course, so much is. Forgive me. Now let's talk about the score, because David, you were saying that it's interesting. Well, tell us what you said.
Well, essentially, it's just I was curious to know what made you decide on the particular style of music, because obviously here we have a sort of a light rock musical, if you like, but with sort of string elements and all that sort of thing in the background, as opposed to, you could be forgiven for thinking coming into this that you might expect to hear quite sort of Elizabethan music and old style, but you've gone for the modern, which I think worked really well.
And good choice.
We both said at the end we really liked the score.
I thought the score was very strong.
But why that particular style?
Yeah, we could have gone for lutes and other stringed instruments, but I didn't want to be too limited by the sounds you could produce with those, especially with the ethereal aspect to it. But also, I'm a sucker for just experimenting with new sounds and synthesized sounds, so I didn't want to be hemmed in too much by that.
Now, I'm going to ask you. You were talking a little bit about the filtering process for development. Was the show originally a 2-acter? I mean, by which I mean, a full 2 hours or so.
That's right. Yeah, we had William Shakespeare in there as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Sarah's sister Anne, who end up together behind her back, but of course she foresees all this. We also had some sailor boys and sailor girls in there, so that was the below stairs story as well. So
it must be quite difficult. It's the old Mark Twain thing about killing one's babies when it comes to editing, isn't it?
Well, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult, especially the bits or the characters you love, I must admit. And 1 or 2 of the songs had to go, but you have to be ruthless.
There were some narrative points in Act 2 as well. Now, were they put in to cover the story as it was because you'd had to make cuts?
Yes.
Yes. If someone was seeing a 2-act version of this, wouldn't necessarily be there.
It's much better to show than tell, isn't it? And we had to just narrate it a little bit, I'm afraid.
No, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm going to compliment you on your cast as well, if I may say. We were very taken by the fact that you could do something like this absolutely dead straight, and I mean a tendency towards the po-faced. But what we liked about this hugely was the fact that the drama wasn't in any way damaged by it, but there were moments of good comedy all the way through, if I may say, and many of which came from you, Dr. D.
Well, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very pleased that you think so. Yeah, I mean it's always nice when things work. And obviously we feed off the audience and give a little bit more back in response, but we don't mind people laughing.
I was going to say, what has your reception been like? Because I know that, obviously we were, I believe, in a full house. It certainly looked like a full house today.
Fullish, wasn't it?
Yes.
Fullish.
Have you been going well the whole way through? Because I know some people have been suffering with sort of a lesser crowd, perhaps because of the Olympics or for whatever reason.
I've been talking to 1 or 2 professional flyers, and they say it's been a quiet week.
Yeah.
Well, I
because
feel,
of that.
having been out flyering myself, I feel like there's more of us flyering than there are people taking flyers.
Yes.
So, but has that impacted on your audiences, or have you been
Yeah,
pretty much...
we've struggled a little bit. It's our first visit to the Fringe with a show, so it's all been a learning process. As far as reactions concerned, I did get booed one night after my song Manipulation as a baddie. Boo!
You know what?
I think it was a rather graduate friend of mine who'd come to see us from Glory Days.
That song's fantastic because I can hear Rex Harrison singing that. That's what's perfect about that song. Do you not think?
Yes, no, I agree. I absolutely agree.
That was meant complimentarily.
Yes, yeah.
So now you said where now for it? I mean, we have to ask that question. Has it got a website? How do people contact you?
There is a website, yeah. ArmadaTheMusical.com. We're on Facebook as well. We've been in touch with a lot of other musicals who are up here as well, and we've promised to come and see each other, but I'm not sure it always happens. But
the ship has sailed for the Armada.
It certainly has, yeah. But I can be contacted on the website. Yeah.
Splendid. May I say, we enjoyed it a great deal.
Good.
We'd like to see a little more of it again, to be honest. So,
all right.
If it does set sea again, if you're I'm labouring this pun, you'll obviously see. But if it does, do let us know, because we'd like to give you a bit of a thumbs up publicly.
You're very kind.
Best of luck.
Thanks very much.
Musical talk. Well, my thanks go out to Rob Winlow for letting us speak to him, and also for writing the show and letting us hear one of the songs from it. We'll be closing today's episode with the finale from that show, so do hang around to hear more from Armada the Musical. What did I say online? Well, on Twitter I wrote Armada the Musical by Rob Winlow, rather impressive with a good score. Rhys McMahon, who played Tom Green, charismatic, and the Queen Elizabeth actress was spot on. And she really was. A very excellent musical indeed. Well, Armada the Musical was set about 400 years ago and featured one of the great threats to national security. How fitting then that the next musical we're going to discuss, The Picture House, does exactly the same thing, but from 70 years ago. Yes, it's a World War II musical, and like most World War II musicals, seems to spend more time talking about the home front than the fighting front, whereas World War I musicals look at the world the other way round. Picture House the Musical is a devised piece by the students at Mountview, one of the great musical theatre schools in London, and it's set in a northern town where a husband and wife buy an ailing picture house, a very old cinema, already falling to bits in the 1930s, just before the outbreak of war. War then comes, the husband is called up, and the rest of the narrative is an investigation of how well the wife fares in looking after the picture house and coping without her husband, as well as the machinations of other people in the local area to get their hands on what is seen as a valuable commodity. The show reeked atmosphere. It felt very, very 1930s, 1940s British, and the score was beautifully played and really drove that atmosphere home. Let's hear from the director of The Picture House. Musical talk.
My name is Tanya Azevedo, and I'm the director and cast member of Picture House the Musical.
Now, Picture House the Musical is, well, I understand it's a devised piece, including the music. It's a sort of collective piece from Mountview.
Yeah, that's correct. The way it works is, in second year in Mountview, it's part of the curriculum to do a devised piece, just as an indoors thing. And this is the last term of second year, so it's the very last project before we branch out into the world. And we devised 3 musicals last year, and that was that. Picture House was one of them, but we just left it. And then during our third year together, there was this Scottish Daily Mail Drama Award that we saw publicised, that it was an award for drama school students to take a new project to the Fringe. And we talked briefly about taking something to the Fringe, and I got everyone together and said, well, we've got this opportunity. If we get the money, would you like to take up something? So we analysed the 3 shows, and we thought which one would be the best to take. We decided on The Picture House. And that's how it started, basically.
I'm very interested particularly in the score. I think the score is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful orchestrations, by the way. I mean, you've got a gentleman on drums, a gentleman on keyboard, and a very splendid violinist.
Yeah.
And that gives a very 1940s, late 30s feel. Not in chronological order, obviously 30s first,
yeah.
But And indeed, the music is quite resonant from the period. So how did the songs get created?
Well, it was very much a collaborative process, because when the show was written, the original workshop version of it, we had about 2 weeks to come up with something to show. So it was very much, there's these two people available, we need a song that captures the love story, go and write something.
Oh, you commissioned individuals and groups?
We were doing individual. We had 16 people in each group to write the 3 musicals that I was speaking before. And then when we started working on it properly for the Fringe, all we did was tighten it and make sure, especially with the orchestrations, make sure that it fitted the dramatic and the musical style of the era. All the orchestrations and everything, all that work was done by RMD Nick House.
Because the very first number, which is a very sort of splendid...
We Will Be With You.
Yes, it's called Prologue here, isn't it?
Yeah.
It starts off with the first phrase of an old Coward song, Moonlight Behind You, I think
Yeah.
it is. The famous potent sheet music, of course, from Private Lives. But then, of course, casts its own melodic line immediately from there. So it sets up a sense of period very, very strongly, and of course played on the violin particularly.
Yeah.
I think nothing sums up the 1930s more than that feel.
Yeah.
But then you go into this very splendid number which takes it totally differently, so it's not a pastiche, so it's not a rip-off in any way, and takes us into the world of the theatre, at least at the beginning, because it's all about, as you say, this picture house is cinema. There are other songs, of course, which do similar things in the sense there's tones and rhythms and elements of period music. I mean, that's quite a deliberate decision by you.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, when we started writing the piece, we wanted to incorporate the whole MGM feel of the old musicals. We wanted for a stage musical to capture that feel of a film Hollywood musical of the time.
Yes, but trapped in aspect, very much of its time.
Yeah.
So, yes, absolutely. Although the film featured at the cinema in question, of course, is Gone with the Wind. Which,
yes.
Apart from a piece of themic music, is not really musical in any way, is it?
I know, it's very true. We just thought it would be one of the most romantic stories to have, and it was set at the time, so...
How's audience responses been?
It's been absolutely fantastic. We didn't expect it to be, in fairness, because we'd never done anything of the sort, and we only created the company for this particular project. So we were not expecting this kind of response at all. That's why we've had a full house for the whole 2-week run. And we didn't get a bigger theatre. We didn't charge more for tickets exactly because we didn't know what to expect.
Well, you never can in Edinburgh, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
It's luck of the gods.
Very true. But yeah, the audience response has been fabulous. We could not be happier.
There's a very good number called Keep Calm and Carry On, which of course very much ties in with the current sort of nostalgia for that period and that particular slogan, which is has sort of marched its way to the top of the zeitgeist, really, in a strange way, hasn't it? Same thing again, that was sort of commissioned to a group. And
it was basically when they started writing it, we just did all the research previously, so just drew a lot of elements from what was spoken in especially North England at the time. What aspects can we incorporate, the rations and all of that. So
yes, it's a very northern piece, isn't it?
Yeah,
in fact, there is a line which for those of us who are Londoners is a little disconcerting about the north being up and the south being down, not said most sympathetically, bearing in mind I assume it reflects bombs, but we'll let bygones be bygones, as it's some years later.
In fairness, 50% of the cast is northern, so...
Oh, really? That's very interesting.
Yeah, great majority of our year was northern.
Hence the built-in bias, shall we say.
Yeah.
There's also, I must remark, a remarkable scene at the end when the picture house appears to be up for sale in the auction house, as it were, from one house to another. And, of course, the process of the bidding is sort of rhythmic and percussive in the sense that the people who were making bids sort of are clicking and stamping their feet in really quite a syncopated way. It's quite a remarkable scene, particularly as it doesn't then... it sort of reaches the end of the plot and the story and the finale there, but in itself it's quite a remarkable piece of staging. How did that come to be?
Well, we needed to come up with an ending, obviously, that climatic ending, and we just wanted to distract the audience as much as possible from Oscar, from anything that Oscar, any
whiff that he might be returning.
No, yeah, exactly. So we tried just having a normal auction, and obviously that was very dull, and auctions usually are very dull, so it wasn't a very dramatic...
Unless you're Hitchcock and you've got some reason to make it through.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't a very dramatic piece at all when we first started writing it. So we just thought, right, the only way we can make this is if we incorporate some sort of percussion. We thought we played around with some tapping, but that didn't work out.
But what you've done is brilliant. I mean, it really makes that scene unusual. You think, oh gosh, this is, and it also helps drive up the tension of who's going to win the auction.
Yeah. Exactly, that was the goal.
Yes.
I'm glad it passed.
It's splendid. Well, does it have a website, The Picture House?
It does. It's called thepicturehousemusical.co.uk.
And I believe that if people are interested in hearing the soundtrack,
you can buy it online as well.
Absolutely, as I have done here in Edinburgh.
Yes.
And you're hoping, of course, I think, to develop the show further if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, that's the goal. We intend. We're thinking of develop it further into an hour-and-a-half long musical, because obviously this was very much tailored to be in the Fringe.
It's got to be Edinburgh format, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So we are now going to look into what the reaction of the audience has been, any interest from the outside, and just take it from there, really.
Fabulous. Well, I wish you every great success.
Thank you very much.
The Picture House may come back to Edinburgh International Festival
as
the full two-act piece.
It could. Could see it in the West End soon, in the near future, hopefully. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Musical talk. That was The Picture House. It was a show I enjoyed very much, but it still needs work, I think, although the show is still in development. On Twitter I described it as a devised piece with some good ideas, not all of which delivered. A derivative score, but beautifully played. Some of the songs were extremely catchy, but the opening number starts with a musical quotation from a Noel Coward song. No bad thing. And indeed, Noel Coward was having a very good year at the Fringe this year. Not only have we already heard about The Two Most Perfect Things, the show which showcased him and Ivor Novello, but several of his Tonight at 8:30 plays were also being performed across Edinburgh. And of course, in order to evoke the 1930s, as I've just said, the Picture House borrowed briefly from one of his musical phrases. Noel Coward, still doing very well. Please pay attention, Mr. Sondheim. And in case you're wondering what I mean from that, I'm just having a quick dig at Stephen Sondheim, because he did spend most of his time in writing his book Finishing the Hat at having a pop at various composers and lyricists, many of whom I noticed were British, and most of the arguments seemed to boil down to prejudice, rather than a forensic investigation on the weaknesses of each of their arts. In terms of historical value, we've visited the 20th century twice, and we've also gone back to the 16th century. But now we're going to go for our biggest leap. We're going back 2,000 years. That's to say, we're going to be looking at Julius Caesar and his escapades in Egypt, which were turned into an opera by George Frederick Handel in the 18th century. The opera, or at least a revised, modernised form of it, was on in Edinburgh this year, and a very unusual show it promised to be. It was from the Munich Gay Men's Choir, so it had an all-male cast. It had renamed the show Julius Caesar Losing Your Head in Egypt, and essentially it had updated the music in terms of tempo and rhythms, and the text itself had been given what can only be described as the carry-on treatment. It was a larger-than-life hoot. I was worried that it would be in German, and indeed it turned out that it was to be sung in German. However, to my surprise and indeed delight, that didn't bother me at all. I was completely entranced by it from the very first. To keep the English-speaking listener engaged, there were video inserts in English and also story synopses periodically placed. But the whole thing was beautifully sung, beautifully modernised, beautifully performed, and with absolute buckets of innovation. I couldn't wait afterwards to speak to the director. So let's hear that interview. Julius Caesar, Losing Your Head in Egypt. Musical talk. Your name?
Martina Fee, and I'm director.
And the name of the show is?
The name of the show is Julius Caesar, Losing Your Heart in Egypt.
Now, this is an unusual musical show, isn't it? Because it's actually really an opera.
Oh yes, it's the opera written by Handel.
Yes.
But of course, there's still other elements in it we added in order to get it into 1 hour show.
It's been made smaller, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. But I tell you what's most striking is that your group, which is the Munich Gay Men's Choir.
Yes, it's called the Philharmonica without R.
Oh, I see.
That's another.
But they play all the roles in this really imaginative way. So Cleopatra is a gentleman in a wig, and you've got these people with sort of placards in front of them, cards with different things on to represent whether they're Roman soldiers or Egyptians, and it's all very funny. How did you get the idea for directing it that way?
Well, we started at the point where we said, what can we do with a choir? And what kind of genre is there? I think that it's hard to find a real genre. It's a choir, yes. It's an opera group, not really, but in a way, yes, of course. So we tried to give the original story a bit of a reduction into 4 characters. Yes. And each of those 4 characters is represented by one of the voices. So we have 2 tenors and 2 bass, or let's say baritone and bass. And these voices, without having a solo voice, of course, one of those voices is representing the figures, how do you say it, figures?
Yes,
the figures, but they're not singing a solo, it's singing the whole choir part.
Oh, I see.
And that's what we tried to invent. And it was a big... we didn't expect it was interesting. We just said, okay, let's start it, let's try it, and it's an experiment.
Really well.
Thank you.
And the music, now that's, although it's by Handel, it's been arranged, isn't it?
Of course.
And there's some lovely, slightly modern touches in it as well. So how did you approach that?
Yeah, so this is Alexander Strauch. He's a very, very, that's my opinion, a very, very interesting composer. And he not usually is in new music. And but he's so talented to have this kind of fun in his eyes, means in his music. That he's so yes. So he has these 2 sides in him. So it's on one hand it's a bit operatic, or let's say these 30 of the 20s and 30s those songs on one hand. On the other hand, it's elements of new music, as you could hear in the big battle. Of course, we said it might be a football game. So the big battle, there are new music elements in it. And he said, okay, he would do this experiment together with me and the wonderful choir.
And it works.
But they are not professionals.
Are they not?
They're not professionals at all. So and this was so lovely for us as well, because this is another energy too. But they were working very hard for being non-professionals.
The audience today really liked you. They didn't clap much during the show, but they clapped a lot at the end, which is a British way of doing things.
Really?
And they really, really liked you, didn't they? They went on and on and on.
Yeah, we were delighted, and we are so happy that we have the possibility to be here.
And you've been very brave, if I may say, because it's not usual very often to have a show in a non-English, because it's sung in German.
Yeah.
But you've been very clever, because you've got video footage and projections telling people in English what the story is.
Yeah.
Where did you film those? Because it's all on the steps of a building with towers and columns.
We come from Munich, so we were searching in Munich a very representative Egyptian style location. And there's this it's called Königsplatz, so King's Place. And on the King's Place there are lots of museums, and it's this classicism which is represented there. And the whole choir in their quite small costumes went there. And we did the filming, and nobody minded.
I mean, let's talk about the costumes. Yeah. First of all, the basic clothing that they're wearing is nothing but a small dungaree suit.
It is.
They're shorts and braces.
Yeah.
But on top of that, as I said earlier, there's this very clever thing where you've got a white piece of card which also doubles up. You can turn it round, and on it is a breastplate or a lady's dress. Yeah,
or you can open it and there it's black. You can turn it around, there's white, where the projection goes with.
That's right, you used it as the projection screen as well. I mean, it's really small but clever. The whole thing was really imaginative, and everyone looked like they were having fun. Has it been fun for you?
Oh yeah, it has been. It has been really, really, because I like experiments, and that was such a pleasure to have the opportunity to really do an experiment without having a whole theatre behind and this whole Anspruch. I don't know that word in English.
I'm afraid I don't know it in German.
It has to be sold and
so it was commercialism.
So we had the freedom,
Yeah.
because it's an independent choir, and they were so supportive to that idea. Because it's not only me being brave, as you said before, it's them being brave.
Well, yes, it must be quite daunting to come to another country, sing in a different language to that country.
And doing Handel. We were very afraid, because you are the land of Handel.
I think we share Handel.
We share, of course we do, but yeah.
But yes, I mean, Handel's obviously a well-known, and he's been adopted as a British composer, you're quite right. But he's loved. But you did it with you did it with respect, so you were true to the text, because, the story came across, the singing was beautiful, but you've given it all this imagination and new thinking and new orchestrations and tempos and just a little bit of dancing and fun. I mean, that lovely bit where Ptolemy is finally killed.
Yeah.
You've got Cleopatra, Caesar and Sextus sort of doing a little victory dance, and it's very sweet. People were laughing all the time.
Oh, nice.
You could sense the audience's appreciation, I hope.
Yes, I could send, but I was astonished because we didn't know how they would react. We didn't know if also the system of having the subtitles, if this would work, if you really can get into the story, because it's far more complicated to have a group representing one of the figures than having just one person having this the possibility to have a scene between two persons or three persons. It's much easier than having a whole group having a scene with another group and another group.
Well, so much of the acting, of course, or the story development is in the text, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
And yet it all comes across. We got the story. We understood who was going up and who was going down. And now tell me about the choir.
Yeah.
The singers, they're all, I mean, you say they're not professional. But
they're not professional.
Very talented.
But they are very talented, and for 20 years, more than 20 years, they're singing together. And
it's a long-established group.
Yes, it's a long-established group, quite famous in the gay men's
choir world.
Scene.
Yes.
But before I started working with them, they had very imaginative, very huge, this, how you say, in dressed as women show, drag, they were very much in the transvestite drag scene before. They enjoyed very much, but they said, well, no, we need to go a step ahead. We want something else. We want opera. We want to try out, to experience new ways.
Yes, very good to push the boundary and try new things.
Yes, and not to be only gay.
Yeah, well, forgive me, that was opera, which I probably wouldn't have gone to see myself. So you're opening the doors for me as well.
Well, that's really, thank you so much, because that's what we also want.
Bring people in.
And bring them to Handel as well. And bring them to new music. Okay, new music elements weren't too much now, but it's good to have people liking bits of it.
Well, I think you've got an absolutely wonderful show there. Most of all, it's fun, but it's hugely inventive. So I'm delighted to call it a 4-star show. And thank you so much for bringing it to Britain. You're only on for a small amount of time, aren't you?
Yes.
So how can people see you?
Well, we are here until Saturday.
And that's a C venue?
That's a C venue. We are in the third floor.
It's quite high up, yes.
Quite high up, yeah. We are still sweating here in the third floor,
hot,
under the roof.
Yes.
And it's always 3:45. You can see the show, and we would appreciate a huge audience, of course. Love to see people come.
And you're on the Mile, aren't you, as well?
Yes.
I think you were there this afternoon.
Yes, we tried to, but we weren't organised enough. We didn't exactly know how it works. That's why we were a bit late, and that's why we are not really much represented in town, because we're a little bit disorganised.
But we'll see you again tomorrow.
We will, yes, of course. And the thing with the Mile, I think they arranged now to have reserved very little spaces where they can sing.
Good, splendid. So people can see you a bit there.
Yes,
and then
a
properly
very
here.
little bit, but properly here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's worth it because Sextus is very attractive. You can
Yes,
tell him.
I will tell him. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's a
Thank
lovely
you so
show.
much.
And I hope it's a success here.
Yeah.
And I hope to see you again next year with a new show.
Oh, who knows? Yeah.
That'd be lovely.
Maybe. Thank you so much.
You're listening to Musical Talk. And that was the very lovely Martina Vey. She was worried that her English wouldn't be good enough, but as you heard, her English was very much better than good enough. And so was Julius Caesar losing your head in Egypt. I was really taken by this show because it was so many of the things I thought I wouldn't like. I'm not a great fan of choral singing. I'm not altogether certain I very much like opera. And I'm afraid to say it, I'm not always very excited at the prospect of sitting through a show if I can't understand the lyrics, being really a words person first. But none of that mattered. The show was so original, so imaginative, that it carried me with it. As I said on Twitter, Julius Caesar losing your head in Egypt at sea inspired reworking of Handel's opera Carry On style and in German. Something special. Well, Julius Caesar was around 2,000 years ago, but bringing us back to the 20th century, and again to that period at the beginning of the Second World War, the next show we're going to discuss owes a very great deal to one of the films that you might have seen at the Picture House, that musical I was discussing earlier. Because, of course, one of the greatest musical films of all time was released in that period, The Wizard of Oz, a show which recently closed in London. But there was another musical, borrowing something of the story, in Edinburgh. It was called Wild West End. Now, Wild West End, in a way, is a British relation to Forbidden Broadway, but it's trying to do something very different, and it's narrative-based rather than just a series of sketches. The reason I put it in this episode about mining the past is because it is quite literally a show which is drawing off other shows which have been successes in the past. This show, more than any other show we discussed today, is mining the past of musical theatre itself. So let's hear from a large number of the people behind Wild West End. Musical Talk.
Hello, I am Matt. I am the producer and co-writer of the book.
Do you want to give me your surname? Sorry.
It's Matt Leventhal. There you go. Co-writer of the book and producer.
Katrina Holloway, and I'm a cast member.
I'm Nick Stevenson, I'm the musical director.
James McAndrew, I'm the director.
I'm Laura K. Thompson, I'm in the cast.
I'm Lawrence Haynes, I'm in the cast.
I'm Greg Link, and I'm in the cast.
Wild West End. Now, everyone's going to immediately say, hang on a minute, that sounds a little bit like the British version of Forbidden Broadway or Jest End. Is it that? Is it different? And by the way, these questions you may confer, phone a friend. It's all in, but not everybody, I hope, all out.
Well, I think it's deliberately different. When we wrote it, we were very aware of Forbidden Broadway and also of Jest End. And we wanted to do something of that ilk. We like their style, but we want to go a bit further, so we wrote a story to go with it. So you get a musical that parodies musicals rather than just songs which parody themselves.
It is actually its unique selling point, I think, in some sense.
Indeed,
the fact there's a
yeah.
narrative drive to it.
Yeah.
And even if, therefore, presumably not all the jokes will fire, because not everyone will have seen all the shows,
No.
they can latch onto the story, even if they know it.
It helps us in the ending, because I think it's a nice ending where everything comes together, and I think that helps us. The narrative helps us, because you can really build to the end of the show, rather than just having to save your best jokes.
So without giving too much away plot-wise, do you care to give the audience just a tiny little hint of the direction it travels in?
Yeah, the story tracks a guy called Jackie, who's an aspiring young musical theatre writer who's unable to write, who is whisked away to the land of Sparkleton by his second-rate fairy godmother. Sparkleton being the mythical world where all of the musical theatre characters live when they're not on stage. And he meets several friends along the way, who include characters from Phantom and The Lion King and The Wizard of Oz. And the whole story is a bit of a twisted parody of The Wizard of Oz with an altered ending. which is stolen from another musical.
Well, forgive me, ripping off
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz has got a long track record,
Yes,
and is currently doing rather
absolutely.
well, I think, in the Hammersmith area.
So yes, so that's what it is. It's a fictional story which we've made up based on The Wizard of Oz, and the musical numbers in our show are musical numbers from the great West End musicals, which we have twisted round either to help with our narrative and or to comment on the industry, on the genre, or specifically on the musical from which the song is taken.
So, and once again, all these questions are open, but this one possibly slightly more for the cast members. You're faced with a script and some songs from shows. You've been charged with spoofing, essentially, in a way that's accessible, that people can understand it. Because I think, in a way, this is the crux of the success or failure of a show, particularly a show like this, is how do you get people to understand what you're doing? So what are the challenges for you in getting that across?
I'd probably say approaching the new version, the new creation of the show with sort of an element of innocence and honesty about it. So not knowingly parodying things as the characters, but rather like as if this is brand new and not previously written.
Accidental parallels.
Yes, I think so.
There's no kind of direct parody thing, especially with the characters. There's obviously a lot of jokes referring to the world of musical theatre, but for example, Phantom of the Opera in Wild West End doesn't come on and just be the Phantom of the Opera from the West End Phantom of the Opera. He's completely different.
Yes.
So his Phantom of the Opera character is kind of secondary to that, which I think that allows us to build a whole other kind of humour on it. So it sort of, once the show starts, we can sort of sell it as parody all we want, but it sort of removes itself from that a bit. It's a whole different beast, really, because they're not those characters at all. They might have the same costumes and the same characters, but we push them far beyond that.
I rather like that conceit, actually, the idea that there's this place where characters live when they're not actually being performed. Reminded a little bit of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, funnily enough. There's Toontown down the road, although I like the fact also that they are, when they're in character, they're different from who they actually are, which I believe may actually happen on the stage on occasions, but I have no evidence of that.
When we were writing it, we had no idea what this world would be. We knew that we needed a world based on Oz, but that was about it. So originally we were going to take the actors, and actually sort of have a kind of an Olympic village of West End performers almost. And so we would, and so for example, you would have, instead of Dorothy, you would have Judy Garland, and the jokes would be along the lines of that she was actually now pushing 90 or something like that. But then that didn't really work, so we thought, why not just have the characters themselves? Because then it gives us the excuse to be completely ridiculous with them. And so yes, the idea that the characters are not played by an actor, they are themselves, and they're just retelling something that happened to them every night, like an autobiography, which is weird as a thing to grasp. But people seem to get it quite easily, thank goodness. It's not the crux of anything, it's just a kind of a little thing about the show.
It's a happy conceit.
I think it's not so much a challenge as more we all kind of had to accept that although we all love musical theatre, we're very aware of the cliches. And as long as we all threw ourselves into it and kind of thought, right, even though I think this is the best song ever, but we're going to completely take the mick out of it, let's just go for it, and just sort of have fun with it along the way, and hope the audience kind of get on board and be like, we all love it, but we're well aware there are things that can make more fun out of than others. So.
Actually, you say we all love it. I do, yes, absolutely. But forgive me, you will have met in your travels those people who say, I don't like musical theatre.
That's been one of our selling points though, and it has been commented kind of on in one of our reviews as well, that it's fantastic because if you love musicals, then people love kind of seeing what we've done to the characters, how we've changed things around, what we're going to do to the songs, and everyone gets kind of really excited about that. Then equally, people that come along that aren't fans of musicals love basically
they're known
seeing...
as boyfriends.
They love seeing how we're kind of going to tear it apart, really.
I think those people are the people that say, I prefer theatre to musicals. I don't think anybody can really say, I don't like a song and dance. I mean, that's pretty, that's basic. That's been around for a
prejudice.
long... Yeah, that's been around for a long time. So we're able to say, it's not not a traditional musical. I think people might dislike musicals because of the things that we say in the show. Sometimes the stories are really second to the music and lyrics or the staging. And the irony, of course, is the writing in this show is outrageously bad. It's you know,
Says the writer.
it's exactly, you know, it's
Only you can say that.
Exactly, it's something. You know, it's not great literature. It's a vehicle in order for us to be able to take the mick. You know, and half of it came out of rehearsals. So it's very ironic. So yeah, don't come to the show if you want like poetry, because you're not going to get it.
It's not the Doll's House.
Yeah, no.
However, you've just raised a tremendously interesting point. It is an authored piece, lyrics, book, but it also has a collaborative element. Every good piece of theatre in any form must be collaborative, and you've just said as much, that so much of it was developed on the workshop floor, if you like.
Yeah.
How do you what do you let in, what do you not let in? As a collective, as a group, when do you think actually this joke isn't working, or would it be better if we did this, or why haven't we got more John Barrowman references? You know, whatever it is.
This morning.
Yeah, when they don't laugh.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's when they.
It's in the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, with the writing, I mean, we wrote something. The story which we wanted to go in was always fixed, but we may as well have written, instead of a whole scene with lines, just written scene where this, and this happens, and then let it play out in rehearsals, which is what a lot of writers of devised theatre do.
You mean they plot the nexus points, but the rest of it, the flesh is added by you.
Absolutely, which is what some people get a little bit confused by, I think. But the things that we laughed at in rehearsals, we on the whole kept. And there's so much other stuff which is getting laughs that we never predicted.
Oh, go on.
Well, it's things like in our Who Will Buy montage, for example, people laugh at the repetition, which we never. People go, "Oh, this is so samey; it's going over again." But people like that because it is monotonous, and I think it does remind them of
Lionel
being
Bart.
out. Being out on the Royal Mile or something like that, and just being consistently sold to. We never expected that. At the same time, we wrote jokes that we thought were quite clever, you know, and have callbacks and stuff like that, and they're just completely lost. And I'm desperate to cut them, but we're a bit too late on in the run for that. We'll have to wait. But so you know, that's the thing with live comedy. I think any comedian will tell you the only way to test out the material is to do it in front of crowds, and that's what we've been doing. And we have precious little previews. We had 4 preview shows before we started the main run, 1 in London, 3 in Edinburgh. So this whole year really could be a big preview, because it definitely will be rewritten and rejigged, and see what we can do with it. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm also interested to hear from everyone else as well about your input, and do things seem funny, get put in, then not seem funny the second time and get taken out again, or do you have the confidence of the joke?
Yeah, well, sometimes definitely. I mean, there'll be things like ad-libs that get put in that we're like, are we laughing at that because it's Greg doing that and he's so funny to watch, or will somebody who doesn't know Greg find that really funny? And that's been the great thing about Matt and Adam sort of being so, you know, generous with the script and saying change it however you want if we feel that something isn't quite working. So there have been scenes where like the 4 of us have just sort of, let's just go for it, and then Jane has given us comments on whether it was great or absolutely terrible.
I think with a group of friends, it's a very dangerous trap you can fall into with trying to be funny, and I have definitely fallen into it with previous shows, where we did a show which was just sort of a funny, witty, kind of scripty play, and we did the jokes that we found funny within our own friendship group, and nobody, not a single person who ever came to the night got any of them or laughed.
In joke,
yeah. It wasn't necessarily in jokes, but it was just this style of humour which we developed as a collective of friends, and it could have happened with this. Thank goodness it didn't. And a lot of times in rehearsals, we were watching it being like, that was great, but we don't know whether we're laughing because you've changed something from the rehearsal, or whether it is objectively funny. So who knows? So it's very hard if you're just rehearsing without audiences to judge that.
It's great having the luxury of being able to workshop it and really tweak it, but the fact it's a new show means that we've really altered. The original script bears no resemblance to the script we have now, and we've been adding in things day by day. I mean, even 2 days ago, we added in a couple of new lines, which we tested out.
Which Greg didn't tell us he was going to do it.
Oh, completely untrue.
Your Honour.
It's been a lot of fun being able to work with the whole crew, being able to change it and alter it as we see fit, based on audience response.
There was a point in like rehearsals where kind of James did have to go, right, we're just going to have to go with what we've now written, because we were just getting so into changing bits and we're adding things in, and we were like, we just need to have something to show people at preview.
You've got to let
and
the jury set.
we'll have to see what what succeeds and what falls flat on its face, and then we can think about changing it again. So that was a point that you definitely had to take with us.
I think there's definitely a few criminal ad-libbers amongst us, which we've sort of cut down. But
I have no idea what you're talking about, Lawrence. No idea.
I think if it's a great crowd, there is a temptation always to ad lib when you're on stage. But I think sometimes that works. But we found with something which has a narrative and a script, and our humour is derived very much from the group. There's like a couple of one-liners in it, which both get sort of groans. But the humour is mostly plot driven. So ad libbing stuff has been dangerous for us, I think. But when we've sat down and had to think about it and thought, well, it worked, I think people have appreciated it a bit more. And that's what we learnt from doing Fresher, is that we threw all the one-liners out the window. The best humour, the biggest laugh of the show came in the last 15 minutes when it was a plot-driven humour payoff. So that you'd set up for your script rather than in the moment.
Cracks,
in the moment, yeah, absolutely.
General question. Musical theatre, I'm hoping everyone around the table loves it. If not, you're really in the wrong profession. But there's a difference for when the Americans do Forbidden Broadway. In a sense, there's a sort of we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? The other day, I think there was a culture of musical theatre. It's their gift to the world, and they say it's here to such, and they love it and they understand the tropes. I just don't think, whilst there's a group of people who absolutely adore it, of which I count myself as one, are those tropes in place easy to spoof? Because I notice there's personality conversations in this as well. You know, that Lloyd Webber does figuratively arrive with a target on his back. Is that? I mean, it must be a difficulty for when you're trying to reap what's funny about musical theatre.
I think
because it's not about mechanics.
I think we're sitting around a table of people who are very knowledgeable about musical theatre, and one of the things which I think we were clear on from the start was that we really had to ring in our desires to do sort of clever, witty, as you say, tropes about the musical theatre industry, or more obscure musicals, or musicals that haven't gone so well. Because coming to Edinburgh...
So there's no Count of Monte Cristo, is there?
Exactly, even things like Wicked, when we were doing our research, we found that although it's been running in London for 5 years, if you're not a Londoner, it's basically unknown to you. So we really had to force ourselves to stick to the biggest musicals of all time. Yeah, to the biggest musicals of all time. And that actually, in terms of what we would want to do, I think has held us back. We've had to do it, otherwise, it would have just been a risky audience. I think in London, I think you can afford to do that because you can attract a much more niche client base.
Yeah,
whereas in Edinburgh, the amount of passing trade who just go, what's on next? They can be anyone. And so you have to be able to cater to what they've heard of and national stereotypes in this country.
It does mean that we can attract that double audience as well that we were talking about earlier, kind of people that love or hate it, and that is part of the Fringe as well. You get people that want to see kind of anything, and they want anything to be accessible to them, and I think that by avoiding those kind of cliche things that people that don't necessarily know about it, that aren't in the industry, so to speak, we've widened our audience base by a significant amount.
Because it's more fun for us. I think we all start, when you're younger and you're starting to learn about what's out there. You go to Les Mis, you go to Oliver, you go to Joseph. Like everyone's been in one of those productions or probably seen it, and also the sort of smaller stuff, something you get into if you're sure, right, this is actually what I'm interested in. So it's fun to kind of go back and be like, right, these are such amazing musicals. What can we find in them that we think's funny, and go with it.
What threads can I pull at?
I think what is so successful. One of the things that's successful about the show is that all the tunes in the show that do parody are all really well known. So there are no tunes that people are sort of unsure of what they are. I think even if you're not a terribly sort of keen musical theatre boffin, you'll still know and recognise
you can spot this is a Les Mis styles tune,
yes.
and it is.
I think it's been really nice as well, like this is slightly off point, but just whilst we're talking about it, like how it's been really nice to rediscover a lot of musicals that we maybe haven't sung for a while, or people don't sing or used, in maybe just a cabaret show and stuff. You wouldn't really hear much of the music from Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat anymore, or even from The Wizard of Oz and things like that. And it's actually been really nice to go back and go, do you know what, this tune from Oliver has awesome harmonies, use it, like when we first put Who Will Buy together, it was so nice. I think we were just all grinning from ear to ear because it's beautiful. It's so well written.
But it's not a destructive show, it's an affectionate show, isn't it?
Oh, it's completely.
Yeah, we all love punching the things we love.
Yeah, I mean that's.
I'm not sure I like that sentence. You understand what I mean?
Well, we were slated by the Telegraph for.
He loves nothing.
Yeah, we were slated by the Telegraph for sort of poking fun at Andrew Lloyd Webber and yet relying so much on his music. But that's I thought that's kind of the point, isn't it? You can't parody something without using it.
Yeah.
And the reason why we put the last song in there, with lyrics like you love it really and stuff like that, is at the end we sort of go, it's kind of a tip of the hat to the musical theatre fans, because we use the Les Mis, which is popularly described as the greatest musical ever written, in our finale number. Although a guy came up to me after the show yesterday and he said, I got all the songs, I knew all the songs from all the musicals apart from the last one. Where was that from? And I was like, really? It's from Les Mis.
It even starts with the same 3 words as the actual song.
But that's in that final song, the line that I've always thought was funny. I get to sing it, but it's you can do anything as long as you sing it. And I think that's kind of what sort of our show kind of bases itself on. Like, we
it's your strap.
Yeah, exactly. We go through all these things the musicals focus on, cats, Nazis and stuff, and yet people are like, oh, they're brilliant, and you're like, I think sometimes some of the topics are hilarious, and people get away with it because you sing it.
Yeah, and things like I mean, we didn't touch on Miss Saigon at all, purely because I think even though it ran for nearly 5,000 performances in the West End, it's now quite a few years old.
Yeah.
But Miss Saigon is a show which I think people go mental over, but let's not forget, it's about a pretty horrific subject matter, which they do.
Ripping off Puccini.
Well, let's not comment on that. But yeah, yes, I mean it's a pretty horrific subject matter. The song like Bouidoy in that, we are Bouidoy, the dust of life. We are Bouidoy, the dust of life, conceived in hell and born in strife, is the lyric from Bouidoy. And you're like, and that's actually awful. And I think that Schoenberg, the writer, I think has done a great job. But what we're poking fun at is the kind of environment that goes around that, which is people just screaming and buying merchandise and waving their hands around and not really thinking about what they've just seen. They think about the musical side of it and not the whole piece. And even the amount of people that I've seen or know that come out of Les Miserables and go, "Oh, wasn't the French Revolution awful?" I think it was not about the French Revolution. It's the other one. So yeah.
Well, actually, I often refer to it as the French Revolution musical.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
If I'm not talking about bread. Obviously.
Yeah.
I think that's why we focus so much on the words, because these songs are so beautiful, but it's the words that really come away with the meaning, and I think that's why we change them and we keep all the melodies. Melodies are wonderful. It's the lyrics that people often don't take in, and we're saying you probably don't remember the actual lyrics because we've changed them all up, and you're not noticing what they're really about.
I think that's one of the reasons why it works as well, is that we keep the songs generally the same in terms of how they are sung. It's just the lyric, and I think that makes it funnier as well.
Yeah.
So like when we do I Dreamed from Les Miserables, like that, she sings that beautifully, and that makes it funnier, even though she's just taking the mick.
Oh, it's not being mugged, is it? No,
it's being sung with sincerity. That's why it works.
It's also why we get away with it, I think, because I think if people came along and our songs were taking the mick, and also the performers did the songs in a kind of lampoony style and just didn't sing them properly, then people would be like, well, you can't take the mick because you're not that good either. But almost all the songs, I think, are done. All we've done is change the lyrics. We haven't changed the intention behind it or anything. So, like, the Close Every Door to Me parody is probably the best example of that, because that is sung like he is Joseph in a prison cell.
But it's the same lighting, hasn't it? It's
exactly. And that's why we've had a lot of the good reviews we've had have almost always praised how technically good the singing is, how a nice sound it has. So not only do people come along and hear sort of funny jokes and parodies on the genre and the characters, but they also hear those songs sung well, which, you know, if not as well as you might get in the West End. So.
Oh, I think all your performers are bound for the West End, aren't they? Unless they're drummed out of the profession. Sorry, that's really interesting. Let's get down to the business part. How can people see Wild West End? And do you have a website?
Yes.
We have a website. It's thewildwestend.com. Which I lovingly made myself, and it's got lots of glitter on it.
In the face?
It does come directly out of the screen, so you can imagine it continuing to your face.
That would be so cool if you could make that happen.
I would have to go to quite a lot of people's houses.
Get 3D glasses and have some glitter come out.
Yeah,
sorted.
Well, okay, probably concentrate on the show for now. So we have a website called thewildwestend.com. You can find us in the comedy brochure. You can also find us in the Fringe guide. We've got a big advert, and we're on at the Pleasance Dome at 6:50 p.m. every day of the festival, right until the last day, the 27th.
And it's straight to the Priory?
Well, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. No one's ever said that yet. Sorry.
Oh yes, of course. Facebook, we are facebook.com/The Wild West End. On Twitter, we are at The Wild West End. So it's all very easy. We are an army of purple t-shirted flyers, so just come and find us and we'll tell you all about the show.
But let's talk about Wild West End in the future, because you've already intimated that this is expected to have a life and presumably will, hopefully with success, travel on forward. Tell me I'm not speaking nonsense here, but you know, and presumably the jokes will change over time. You know, one day Lloyd Webber will go, and we'll all be talking about Styles and Drew.
I think Wild West End has a future. I'm not sure. Commercially, it's tough because it's not our music.
So you have to pay copyright on all the melodies, don't you?
Absolutely, yes. We are paying a lot for those tunes, but it's as a format. I think I like it. It means we can, depending on what audience we're playing to, we can add more musicals. We can add different musicals. We can add characters, and so the Wild West End as a brand, you may see us next year with a new show under that title, but a completely different story and a completely different set of songs and musicals. Who knows? Or
Which is what Forbidden Broadway do, essentially.
It's exactly what Forbidden Broadway.
Franchise musical in a way.
It's what people like Barbara Shopper do. They came up with a wonderful format, and they're a wonderful group, and they use their style to tell a different story each year. And so maybe we'll do that. Don't know yet. We have to see. We'll have to see how sales and reviews go in the next week or so.
But people should see this one in order to collect the sets.
Absolutely, yes. Please.
Tick you off one by one.
Yeah, please come and see us. That sounded desperate, actually.
I think we're refreshing for the Fringe as well, because you do
refresher the musical. No.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously at the Fringe you get a lot of, let's be honest, American high schools, even English high schools doing often the full length version of a given musical.
The Usual Suspects.
Yeah,
in fact, musically, yes.
And very often they're not, you know, what you really want to spend £10 on. So obviously there's good musicals, but we are one which will, you know, kind of stand out as, you know, above the rest of them.
Very much.
It's quite, if you go and see a couple of terrible musicals somewhere in the Fringe, then you come see us, then you'll feel, you know, completely refreshed.
Yours is not a terrible musical at all.
But at the same time, that's sort of our plea really, is that the musicals and opera section of the Fringe Guide is getting much smaller and smaller every year. I mean, it's only, I think, 5 pages this year, or 5 double pages, compared to the comedy, which is now into 300 pages. So there is room for musicals at the Fringe. It's hard to do a big retelling or restaging of a traditional musical, and I would advise people not to do that.
No.
But
do bring up new writing, please.
Yes, absolutely bring up new musical theatre writing, bring up revival. I mean, think what people do with Shakespeare is they take the original source work and they mix it about. That's essentially what we've done, and people should do that more. People should write more musicals specifically for the Fringe, 4 and 5-handers with a really strong keyboard score, keyboard vocal only. So you can do that, because it's almost impossible to bring a drum kit to the festival. No venues, acoustics will ever accommodate it. So that's what, you know. So I mean, if people come and see us, I hope they can see. And I hope from coming to see Fresher as well, that if you do write a musical specifically for the Fringe, it can work, and you can get a wonderful vocal sound out of it, as opposed to a lesser product than you would get in a big theatre down in London or one of the big regional tours. So it is worth doing musicals at the Fringe.
Unfortunately, I can't disagree with a word of that. I'd love to see all of that, but in the last few years there have been a few successes. Departure Lounge is back again with a different production team. Last year, Jet Set Go came back with a different production team. You know, these shows, I expect Fresher to turn up in a few years' time.
There are a few that kind of we've seen that are around the festival that are doing really well, really well.
That's easy for you to say.
As musicals, no, there are, and but I think you're right. The section is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it shouldn't be like it can be so successful.
If all the newspapers say that musical theatre is what all theatre is about these days, and rather foolishly they do, why isn't it up here?
It's very true. It's so entertaining.
So much fun.
Wonderful.
So, last question for each of you, but I'm going to go round so everyone has a chance to say something. Very briefly, I'm going to ask you, when the dust settles on this round of Wild West End, and Edinburgh is a memory for this year, and you're all lying on the floor gurgling in pain, what is the thing you'll take from this show?
Having the opportunity to play Andrew Lloyd Webber as a particularly reptile character.
I would say the bond as like the team of us, there's 10 of us, 9 of us in the flat, and we've just had such a great time together and produced a show that we love, so bonding with everyone. That sounds so cheesy.
You don't need great writing to have a hit.
Anywhere. Oh, put me to shame.
Yeah. It's good. On the Fringe or indeed the West End.
I've just enjoyed the experience really of being able to take so many different types of musical theatre and being able to do that in one show, because normally if you're doing a musical you just get stuck with that for about 3 months, and we've had the joy of having so many different types of musical theatre within a very small period and just enjoying it and messing around with it, and it's just been great.
Well, it's kind of like Laura's, but a little bit different. I think the fact that we've all been able to kind of collaborate on this project, and we've really made it into something that all of us are so all of us are so proud to be like part of, and we're very attached to it, and I think it's actually going to be really hard to let it go, just because we've spent all of that time really making it how we want it to be. So that's me.
Yeah, I just loved creating something with friends, and it's something that I've never really done before on this sort of level, and it's just been an awful lot of fun, and to do such a wonderfully long run and to watch something develop every day, it's really great.
Having the opportunity to perform a show for 30 odd performances and being able to really tweak it and make it what it is for a long run.
I think I'll take away 2 things. The first is I really enjoy and like to bring people to the festival who haven't had the chance to perform here before. So I think we've got about 5 of our whole team, about 5 Fringe debuts here. And also the second thing I'll take away is hopefully more money than I started off with.
Yes. Well, I wish you all that great ambition. Well, may I compliment you all on your bubbling enthusiasm, because nothing to me is better and more exciting than people who are genuinely excited by what they're doing.
Thank you.
It's fabulous. So I wish you huge success. I've enjoyed it very, very much, and I look forward to seeing future iterations and anything else you care to produce in.
Yes, we'll be in touch.
Please do. Absolutely. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and more power to your elbow, particularly this evening, if I may say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I do a plug for our next show?
Oh yes, please. But is there anything else?
One thing is we're Paulden Productions, the company behind this musical here, are doing a play, I Am a Camera, which is the play that inspired Cabaret. So continuing on the musical theme. It is Christopher Isherwood, based on the memoirs of Christopher Isherwood, John Van Druten's adaptation, and we're opening that at the Southwark Playhouse with an absolutely all-star cast, starring Harry Melling of the Harry Potter franchise, at the Southwark Playhouse on the 5th of September. That is opening, and it's running for a month. So if you're interested in the back history of one of the biggest musicals of all time, come and see the play.
It's a good story in its own right. It's fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Has it got a website?
No, it doesn't have a website, but you go on the Southwark Playhouse website and all the information is there.
Splendid. Gosh, in Edinburgh and in London, you're touching all bases, if I may say.
Well, 2.
Yeah. But they are quite far apart, and they're both capitals, so from their peripheral knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Musical talk. Well, my thanks to Matt and the rest of the team behind Wild West End. I look forward to seeing further iterations of that show in the future. I think it has the potential to become, well, I hope one of the West End staples, let alone the Wild West End staple, perhaps. For we certainly need a British answer to Forbidden Broadway, and we only so far have Jest End. So this is a welcome addition to British musical theatre history. It will be interesting to see, however, how they deal with the essential problem, which is that musical theatre culture in Britain is not so fully ingrained as it is in America, of course. For us, there are very few tropes or memes which are, well, known in everyday life and households. And so, when coming to spoof things like that, it's very difficult to know where to begin. However, let's move on to something different. And that very different something that we're going to move on to is a conversation between me and David Kingsmill. We met up on several occasions to discuss the things that we'd seen in Edinburgh, and in this conversation you'll hear our discussion of his show, Mr. Millennium, that's the show that he was in, a cabaret, about the realities of being a superhero in the real world, and it ties in with the theme of today's programme by, of course, mining those tropes about superheroes which have been in existence throughout the second half of the 20th century. We also touch upon some of the nuts and bolts of what it's like to be up in Edinburgh, such as the difficulty of flyering and advertising your show. Then we touch again on Armada and Departure Lounge, which, although we've discussed it in a previous programme, was such a good show it was worth having another discussion about. Now, I can't really pretend that that's mining the past in any real way, so we'll gloss over that. But the next show certainly has, because at the end of our conversation, David touches upon Beth, which is apostrophe Beth, the musicalised version of Macbeth. And of course Macbeth, as we know, isn't just a play by Shakespeare, but a genuine Scottish king. So join me and David for this chat about some of the shows in Edinburgh. Musical talk. David,
hello.
It's lovely to see you up here in Edinburgh again.
Likewise.
And also slightly amazing, bearing in mind how absolutely busy you are. You've got a show on the go.
I do.
And as we all know, a show isn't just a show. It's not just the hour that one does in the auditorium. It's 7.5 hours a day, tromping up and down in Lycra or not on the Royal Mile, isn't it? Or whatever. There's a lot that goes around the show that people don't see.
You don't stop in Edinburgh. I think the only time you ever stop in Edinburgh is if you're selling out by the beginning of the third week, and then you can go, okay, we can take you still can't stop, but you can take a step back. And goodness knows that's not happening to me at the moment. But it's a very, very rare circumstance. I think with Hitler last year, I think we stopped for the last 2 days of our 2-week run. So
You were a bona fide blue ribbon sellout last year, weren't you? So.
Yes.
No, I suppose it's one of the problems with Edinburgh is that there's so much to choose from. It's you know, how does one draw attention to oneself?
Exactly, 2,700 plus shows. What's this one got over that one, or the 20 on up the road?
Now, I remember you telling me last time we were talking about Mr. Millennium is that you do a leafleting in the morning in your normal clothing, and then you do a leafleting in the afternoon in your superhero costume.
Indeed.
How are you going down on the mile? Because you must be fairly striking.
As me, it's difficult to get rid of flyers, because I just become one more flyer. And I think that you can see people that you don't want to approach because they're walking towards you with 25 flyers stacked in their hands and a slightly grumpy expression.
Yes.
Or sometimes you actually see someone take a flyer and 3 steps later put it in a bin.
Oh, really?
That's
demoralising, isn't it?
Well, hopefully the person who gave them it is looking the other way, but you do see it happen quite a lot. And so there are people to avoid, as me, because I am just another person. And it's difficult to get rid of flyers. When what I was saying, I think when we had this conversation, is that there are people who are on the flyer who can just hold out a flyer and say improv comedy, new sketch show, whatever it is, because either you can't give away what's in it or you don't yet know yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And so when, for example, with my show, I kind of, if I really want to sell it as exactly what it is, I have 5 words I need to fit in, which is superhero, cabaret, comedy, drama, and song.
You need to make that a sentence, because otherwise
you need to make that
it's strange.
Yes, absolutely. But actually selling that to somebody when they can just look at the person 2 feet to your right and who's just saying improv comedy and they know what it's about is actually really hard. As Mr. Millennium, I'm actually getting rid of about 5 times as many flyers.
Which tells its own story, doesn't it?
Which tells its own story, yeah. Well, I'm in very vibrant yellow and purple lycra.
Yes,
I quite often, if my voice is in good nick that day, I will stand on the stone bollards bellowing at people at the top of my voice. And people swarm up to you. I have people come up to me for a flyer.
Oh, well that must be pleasing.
I've had my photograph taken more times in the last week and a half, I think, than I have in about the last year, if you excuse holidays. So yeah, you get a lot more attraction if you have something to look or appear different quickly, which is something. There will be a special episode going out at some point in time, which I'm going to be doing about tips for people coming to the Fringe.
We're looking forward to that.
And that will be one of them. So, listeners, it will either already be out or about to go out when this comes out. Look for that one if you're looking at doing a Fringe show next year, because there is a lot that I have learned, and I'm speaking to other people as well about their experiences.
This is the invisible stuff that goes around putting on a show, isn't it?
Exactly.
And everyone you speak to, and we've spoken to lots of people separately and together for Musical Talk, everyone is saying, this has all gone very well, or it hasn't gone very well, but I do wish I'd done X, Y. Even the most successful shows are thinking, I could have done X, or if I'd had time, I'd have done this.
Oh, absolutely, because the Fringe as well is a very organic place to be.
Yes.
In the sense that everything about it is slightly different day on day.
Not just the weather.
Not just the weather. Although, well, for me, the weather has a prime effect because I can't go out in the suit if it's raining. Because if I do, I have to stick a poncho over it, and it doesn't work.
Well, that would be a beautiful image.
Well, yes. I did get a few glances walking home in one yesterday because I came out of my show and it was pouring down. But you can. So there, for example, I have to revise my tactics because I cannot fly in my most effective mode. There will be another show who will have chosen to fly a particular way that doesn't work quite as well this year as it did last year. There are so many challenges to overcome with this. And there is, much as I say I'm going to produce a guide on being at the Fringe, there is no set way to do something successfully. It is entirely dependent upon what you're doing.
And it could be different again next year contextually anyway.
Absolutely. Well, next year we won't have the trouble of having the Olympics for the first week, which has put several sort of corks in waterfalls and stopped them from actually having any effect, where normally you'd have this some sort of form of success trickling out of it.
Well, if even it's only the BBC talking about it, because usually the BBC are full pelt into the festival and reporting, even if it's only for the comedy part of the festival.
Indeed.
Immediately, but of course they've been busy broadcasting to the world on other events.
They have indeed.
So, there is just low understanding of the Fringe going on.
I think so.
However, and we'll come back to Mr. Millennium in a minute, because I came to see it and very much enjoyed it, I have to say. But we've been to see some shows together.
We have.
Apart, so we're going to sort of grapple through one or two of those. Should we start with the first show that we saw together?
Let's.
Which was Armada.
Indeed.
Now, Armada does what it says on the tin. It's a musical about the Armada, the Spanish Armada to be precise. It was... Well, how would you describe it in terms... Because it was... Let me tell you immediately, there was a medium-sized cast of different ages, but two of the most striking characters in it were the woman who played Elizabeth I, who I thought was brilliant as Elizabeth.
Very, very
Not
good
only
indeed.
looking like her, she got that immediately you were going to see that's Elizabeth I. But she had it was an interesting interpretation, which I felt held very true to what we understand about Elizabeth I. And then there was a chap by the name of Rob Winslow, I think his name was, who was the composer and lyricist, who was playing Dr. D.
Indeed.
Who was the principal dynamic and manipulator. In fact, he has a song about manipulation behind a way of resolving the Armada to England's benefit, I should say.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's difficult to classify precisely what this was. I would imagine, bearing in mind that you get given 3 options on the Fringe website when you sign up your show, I would imagine that they probably put themselves down as semi-professional.
Yeah.
Because you can put yourself down as a professional, a semi-professional, or an amateur cast. They were a bit too good to be an amateur cast.
Oh, yes, I agree.
It was, I think, it was the bit in the middle of amateur and professional, where they're not quite of a professional standard, but they are quite substantially above where...
Churchill backrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're the kind of guys who would probably put on quite a lot of amateur theatre just to keep their hand in, and they would be the kind of people who give it the really good name that it can have, and make people question, well, hang on a minute, where is the line's a bit blurred, where do you stop being amateur and start being semi-professional at least? It was a very, very accomplished production with some extremely good performances. The 2 we've already mentioned as well, with a couple of the younger members too, held up some quite challenging parts in points very well.
If I had to put a finger on a weakness for it, it will be a slight failure of the plot in Act 2.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not a great fan of magic. Now, Dr. D spends quite a lot of Act 1
Being a charlatan?
Yes. Well, but being a very knowledgeable political charlatan.
Yes.
He knows what he's doing.
He does.
But he doesn't actually have any magical skills whatsoever. And indeed, he's got this little mantra about being very good at the intent, but not on the detail. Meaning that he's very good at reading people. He's a psychologist more than anything else. So he can read people and play that to his advantage.
Well, he's essentially a real-life magician and mentalist, as opposed to the magic that you would talk about in a fantasy novel.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's mind tricks and sleight of hand and tongue, and his ability to sell himself as this character.
It's still set in a rationalist world, even though he's playing the game to allow himself to seem to have new supernatural skills.
Yes.
He's really living in a rational world. However, he's got this acolyte, a young girl by the name of Sarah.
Indeed.
And she appears to have genuine kind of magical skills. And in the second act, she's on board Sir Francis Drake's ship fighting the Armada. But for some reason in the plot, she has to go over to mainland Europe and retrieve a locket from an ambassador, which is the key to communications for the Spanish and various allies' communications, which she successfully does. But it does seem that she does it by actual physical transmutation of herself off the ship she's on to there and back again in certain cases, and she can hear telepathically from Dr. D.
Yes.
So this is odd moment where the supernatural seems to come to be.
Well, it's funny because they almost try and play on, particularly with the relationship with Sarah and I forget his name, but the young hero.
Oh yes.
Who is Thomas? That's it.
Very sensible name.
Who is indeed?
Yes.
Who is in
definitely handsome as all Thomas's are.
Quite so. And he's completely in love with Sarah, and they play on the connection of love and this strength of if you love her enough, she will be able to do it, even though you're however many miles apart.
A kind of love-based symbiosis.
Yeah, which in its own way almost doesn't go too far, because there's, there is that you can draw strength from somebody's feeling towards you, and so on, even if there was a slight disparity of time and distance. But it's the fact that she starts actually hearing words and can understand what Dr. D is saying to her is where it goes a bit metaphysical.
He's got an astral telephone, essentially, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. And I know what you mean. All of a sudden, I mean, they set it up at the very beginning because they talk about having this secret weapon that has never been known and nobody does know, but now we're going to tell you the story of what this secret weapon was and how we beat the Armada. And it was set up. But then at the same time, because Dr. D is such a successful charlatan, it then was de-set up for me, because you then went...
Undercut itself.
Okay, the secret weapon is actually a network, rather than some, supernatural force. And then all of a sudden the supernatural force came back. And now we did talk to Rob, and the listeners will hear that particular interview, and he says that there were some bits that were cut. In particular, there was one point where they said the power of love will take her through, and then all of a sudden it was done, and you didn't actually see her doing what it was she was supposed to be doing. And this was it was a condensed version. It was meant to be a 2-act musical, and obviously they've chopped it down for Edinburgh, which is a running theme between our discussion later on as well, I'm sure, with another show. And so you can forgive them a certain amount of that, but I see where you're coming. I forgive the fantastical a little bit more than you do, I know, but it did feel a bit jarring in this particular production.
However, the flip side of that is I thought the score was extremely strong.
Very.
Much more than I expected to be. It's quite a modern score.
Yes.
But very, very palatable.
Very.
I had a very strong sense of melody, and so I thought the score was actually really quite top-notch.
I can still bring bits of it into my mind. And actually, this is something that's interesting, because it didn't prevail so much in last year's Fringe for me, was the new bits and pieces that I saw, I didn't go away remembering the music.
Yeah.
There were bits and pieces of Evil I thought were great fun, but I couldn't sing any of the music to you now, whereas the Armada theme is still running in my head. There's a couple of other little bits of music where I can just about reconstruct them in my mind, and we're now not quite a week later, but to all intents and purposes.
But many shows afterwards.
Many shows later.
Much music since.
Yes, indeed. And I think that is a testament to shows, and it's the same thing I said with, I think I say in the interview with the Newland Boys, which we'll talk about in a moment. Same thing, 4 days later, and I'm still humming a tune. That was before I even saw the show. That was just from the stage on the Mile. And that's a testament to musicals who have written a good score, because you need a hummable tune.
Well, shall we talk about... Let's cut to the chase and go straight to Newland then, because we really liked Armada, actually.
Yes.
And with a couple of polishes and to see the full show, would be something worth seeing.
Yeah, and I think we both agreed that we would want to see the full show, because it is something that has a little bit more to give.
Yes.
And you want to see that bit more.
It was engaging, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, Newland,
Yes.
another piece of new writing.
Mhm.
I've said this elsewhere, and I'll say it again. For me, so far, the most exciting bit of new musical writing I've seen in Edinburgh this year.
I think I would agree with you.
So, I mean, we've interviewed the creators previously on Musical Talk and here up in Edinburgh, so the plot is relatively well known, but briefly, it's about a sheriff who's betrayed in his hometown, makes it to another new town, which is Newland, finds love there of sorts, certainly settles, seems to find a happier, better life. But then, of course, the draw of his original town, which is going to pot in his absence, gives him the question: will he go back and lose potentially what he's newly found, or not?
Yeah.
That, in a very rough nutshell, is it. So that's the heart and the dilemma. But the show, set in the Cowboy West, I heard one person say in the street, "Oh, I don't fancy seeing that. It sounds like it's country and western." It wasn't country and western at all. So just give me your take on Newland.
Well, it was, musically speaking, it was a combination of jazz-influenced light rock. I think.
I got more jazz than rock, but I agree.
There were just little bits of that, I think. I mean, Ivy very light, but there was an element of it, and also kind of flavours of different styles without necessarily. So we had our little parody hoedown, which had its flavour of a country and western hoedown, but it wasn't a country and western piece of music, and at no point
it remained in the integrated score, didn't it? It didn't stick out like a sore thumb at all.
No, and at no point were you fed country and western music, which I think is probably... I can understand why people would be put off, although actually if they went and heard them singing on the Mile, they were singing songs like Bringing the Bad Guys Down and Newland, both of which would sell them very well the concept of what the score's actually like. There were bits of it that had sort of reminiscences of more modern stylistic composers. Actually, funnily enough, I was talking to the drummer while you were having a chat with the writer about... he said, what was your favourite song? And I said, well, if you take the chorus ones, because obviously you get hit by the chorus ones, and they're fantastic harmony, really good harmony. I actually think that one of my favourite songs was the song about being a millionaire, which is sung by the two brothers. And funnily enough, without the element of patter, had a reminiscence in my head of Both Sides of the Coin from Edwin Drood, because it had that kind of the banter between the two of them talking about this, and there were little bits of sort of different modern styles, which I think added up to a really cohesive score.
Yes,
and I think that its strength was in the fact that it did so many different little things without ever breaking from its heart.
It was flexible enough within itself because it was constructed well enough to allow it to do all of that. Yes, absolutely.
And it wasn't a parody musical or a comedy musical, which meant that it needed to have a running theme. And it did. And it succeeded very well in that. So, job done as far as the score's concerned. I thought it was brilliant.
It played very nicely on the ears. It was very, very pleasant to listen to. And that sounds really damning, but I mean it really positively.
Absolutely, I agree.
There was not a duff note, there was not a duff song, and I liked a lot of the lyrical intricacy.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was some really, really clever lyrics in there, and I thought there was some that they were verging on the point of getting something that sounded like it could be a bit corny and put in for effect, but it actually never did particularly feel that way.
It wasn't corny at all.
No, it was actually... It was on the tasteful side of that sort of design. Because everybody knows who's tried to write a song in their life. If you're trying to write something that rhymes, at some point in time, you will make a lyric fit.
Yes. But you can do it obviously, or you can do it cleverly.
Yep, precisely. And they did it cleverly the whole way through, I think. There were a couple of lines that we mentioned, actually, and I think in our interview, that were a bit questionable. But it was a couple of lines rather than a song or a lyric.
And a polish would take it where it needs to be. Yeah.
Quite so.
Nothing fundamentally wrong at all.
And they did some really clever things with the words, actually. The particular one that stood out for me in that sense was there was the longing ballad, if you like, that the two girls sang.
The Sondheim-y one.
The Sondheim, well, yes.
Musically, it sounded very Sondheim-y.
Which I think you're saying as much as anything because it was in a 5/4 time signature. But
it had some, forgive me also, but there were some sort of, I don't know if they're chords or, there were some musical cadences that just, I thought, Stephen's with me.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that, and I think it did have an element of that. But what I thought was really good was the fact that they managed to write a duet with a sort of counterpoint melody being sung, so the two girls singing, but 2-3 beats off each time, and actually managed to make it balance as if it was written, because it's quite hard.
Yes.
I mean, writing in 5/4 is not the hardest thing if you're doing a single line, but when suddenly you split it into two, trying to make them sound cohesive is quite tricky. And I thought he did a really good job at that.
That was the one where they had some shared lyrics, but they weren't sung at the same time, which actually really added the oomph of what that song was about, particularly as they were singing about the same fella.
Quite.
Yeah, it was good. They used good theatrical technique.
Very.
We awarded the show 4 stars.
We did.
Because it was very nearly perfect, and another polish would take it there. And of course, we do accept it was condensed for Edinburgh, as we chatted to Tom and Grant,
absolutely
the people behind it.
And some of the things would simply be fixed by putting it into a full-length situation on a bigger stage with a budget for props. I mentioned the concept of having a full bar on at one point because you could envision it.
Yeah.
And this show didn't suffer for it, but it could be that tiny bit better with it. And so that obviously doesn't particularly reflect in the rating because we're rating what the show is now. But I think it's a compliment to the show of the fact that is there.
I think it's important to make this distinction actually because there are 2 kinds of new writing that come to Edinburgh roughly, very broadly. There is the show which is written for Edinburgh, which is often a one-actor. In fact, it would normally be a one-act. And Departure Lounge is a very good example of that.
It is.
Written for Edinburgh, Jet Set Go, these kinds of shows, Hitler. They're written specifically for Edinburgh. They're one act. They come up, they do their stuff, they might have a life afterwards, but if they have a life afterwards, it's most likely to be in Edinburgh again or something like that.
Yes.
And then you've got the shows which actually have ambition to be somewhere else, to be the more traditional model of a show, a 2-actor aiming for the West End, or at least off West End, something like that, full of ambition. And what we've got here is one of those.
Definitely.
I know there's at least one review that said this was the wrong kind of show for Edinburgh. Well, that goes to show that the person who wrote that didn't know what they were talking about, because all kind of shows are welcome in Edinburgh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't just want to see 1-act shows, I want to see 2-act shows. And what I loved about this piece was not only was the craft evident throughout, and craft turned to great effect, so it wasn't just craft for its own sake, it was all devoted to the piece. To make an integrated whole, and I'm using a W on that, but also it had ambition to be something else, and an ambition which I'd really like to see reach fruition, because I want to see this show again in its fullest form.
Agreed, and I think that actually within your 2 definitions of what shows are, I think there's another twin definition, which is the definition of a show that has bigger ambition, because there is also the definition between a show that would come up like, to take examples, Edges, Pasek and Paul's Edges, or I Love You Because, granted both shows from over the pond, but that are complete with a small set, 4 people and a band of 3, or actually I Love You Because' band is about 7 people, but you know what I mean. There's that level of show. There's a brilliant one, The Story of My Life, which I've discovered recently, and I recommend everybody looks it up because it's delightful, which is 2 people, and I can't remember the instrumentation of it. Is it just a piano? I forget. I haven't listened to it for a little while, but it's tiny, and that is full at Edinburgh, and it will be just the same show if you took it to a West End, one of the smaller West End theatres. But then Newland is the type where Edinburgh is the testing ground and the proving ground that then makes it bigger. So just having ambition doesn't necessarily mean that it's not finished. It might just have ambition to go somewhere, whereas Newland really is one of those that has the ambition to keep growing.
Yeah, I agree with that absolutely. So, all in all, we very much like Newland.
We did.
But let's stay with the Surgeons' Hall for a while, because I'd like to touch upon Mr. Millennium.
Okey-doke.
Now, it's a little unfair for you to have to hear this, because obviously you're behind it.
Well, yes, but equally, it's always good to get some constructive feedback.
Well, I'm going to tell you immediately, I enjoyed it, and I'll be absolutely honest and frank with you. I didn't know if I was going to, because I don't have any buy-in to superheroes. Mm-hmm. I went because it was you, David.
Very kind.
But I'm very glad I went, because actually it was a top-notch production. And I hope you won't mind me saying, I actually think it was more successful than your Songs of David Kingsmill, which was your one-man cabaret last year.
Yeah.
Partly, I suspect, not that you were a stranger to the stage then, but you've got another year's experience. This was, although you hadn't had a great deal of time to write the show, because it was a replacement show for something you've been planning in greater detail.
It was.
Or is. It had a cohesion. If anything, its biggest failing, if you don't mind me saying, was being possibly 1 or 2 songs too short. It comes in at 45 minutes. You could have easily got 55 minutes out of it.
Yeah.
And if the truth be told, one more comic number, because I tell you what you were very good at, and basically what happens if we're not breaching it, you come on as Mr. Millennium, who's a genuine human, who's got some kind of superhero power,
Yeah.
and of course you have all the trappings of being human, which means you have to use public transport and
Yes.
fit into your costume and stop for lunch and all these kinds of things.
Exactly.
That superheroes in fiction genuinely don't seem to have to worry about. And so that was a very interesting conceit. So you came on with a good conceit, and then you explored it nicely. There was a slight, not disparity, because you played the balance between, look, here are the comic nonsenses about actuality compared to the fiction. And then you also very cleverly play the sadness of the tale, that actually it doesn't give you an opportunity to forge a genuine relationship or even many friends, if any friends. That you've dedicated yourself to a life which you're never going to be able to fulfil quite right, and is never going to be fully successful for you, and therefore fulfil you.
Quite.
So there's a great sadness in that. So you've got the comedy and the sadness, which is essentially the core emotional of the piece, the core emotions of the piece, and very strong emotions to boot. So. You've got good fundamentals there, in truth. The songs, on the whole, were slightly more geared towards the sadnesses. That's not to say all the way, because there were some splendid comic numbers. But I think you possibly needed to balance it up with one or two more comic numbers. That's my take. However,
Sure.
That said, my favourite song from the piece is one of the ones that you wrote, because you had one song from someone else, didn't you, James?
I did. I borrowed "Save the World" from James Mikolos because I can't remember when it was. I came up with the concept for the character, and it's. Anybody who knows Save the World knows where that song goes and knows where it's logically going to lead my character.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought that was where it was going to go, but as soon as I realised I was doing a piece about superheroes and James had written a rather splendid song about superheroes, I thought, well, hello.
Yes, it's a marriage, mate.
I sent him an email that very day and said, do you mind if I borrow this? Which, bless him, he said, no, that's fine. So yes, I was, but everything else is my own work. Yeah.
Well, my favourite song from the whole piece, and by some margin, is the incredibly intricate and splendid Nightmare song. Now, this makes you and Gilbert and Sullivan bedfellows, because in Iolanthe, by far the most intricate and impressive song is the Nightmare song, sung by the Lord Chancellor.
And I'm lying awake with a dismal headache.
That's right, which you must have been when you were writing this, I suspect. But this is a totally different kettle of fish. But what's so splendid about it? It's a nice long song, so it's there's meat on that bone. It's about your nightmare as the superhero you are meeting other fictional superheroes and how well or not that goes. So it's a good catalogue number in that sense, but actually it's really intricately written lyrically as well. It's fascinating, even if you know nothing about, even if you stop listening to the content of the show. The intricacy of the song itself was in itself a splendid little gem.
That's very kind and good to hear, thank you.
But also, it added meaning to the show as well. So I think that was fabulous. Now, we were talking about this before we were recording yesterday. I think you called it an urban beat poem, did you? Is that
I didn't call it urban, but
sorry.
A beat poem of sorts, yes.
I mean, more roughly, one might say white man rap, but of course that undersells it, because that's always a pejorative term. What I mean here is actually that it's got complicated internal rhymes and rhyme structures. And you sort of sing it as well, which...
Well, I mean, there's not actually... I don't think there's actually a sung note in the entire piece. I've just done it as... it'll be no secret to anyone who knows my inspirations that I got the idea for doing that from Tim Minchin's Storm, which is a 9-minute beat poem that he does about going to dinner with a girl with slightly opposing views to him. And I was trying to come up... To be honest, I was looking for ways to write a show with speed, and this comes onto the same thing about wanting an extra song. And I just thought, well, for one, it will fit. There's so many characters in comic books that I could talk about and make jokes about, that why not do something that fits them all in? Yeah. In a similar sense, I suppose, to my Lonely song last year, but take it to a point where I can actually fit more in than the confines of a rhythmic structure would allow me, because there is no rhythm to this at all, and there is no pattern to how many syllables there are before a rhyme comes back. There's not even necessarily... there's a couple that are actually not even rhymed with single word. There's one that actually crosses even over the end of a sentence. So there's a lot of that kind of thing. But it was also a mechanism of being able to slightly pace up what I could fit in a short space of time.
But despite the constraints of what it was trying to do, it actually succeeds beyond your wildest expectations, I think.
That's very kind, thank you.
I was delighted by that song.
Excellent.
I enjoyed the whole piece, but that was worth the price of admission alone, if I may say.
Oh, thank you.
So I was very taken by that. you haven't been having the largest audiences, but you've been getting good support from those people who've come.
I've only had one audience that didn't particularly get it, which was an audience of 5, and it was very difficult to get anything other than a very slight sort of under the breath chuckle from one chap who was trying to encourage the audience, and it didn't really work. It's had funny receptions. Logically, I suppose, it goes down better with Americans because they are slightly more inclined towards this culture. Yeah, well, not only that, but also the culture, the nature of sort of dressing up and being a bit wacky. I mentioned in our reviews of what I saw last year, The Distant Worlds, the music of Final Fantasy, which is a concert I saw at the Albert Hall, of music from the Final Fantasy series of video games. Now, the Albert Hall seats 4,000 people, and although I saw a few people with funny hats or T-shirts or something like that, there were probably only about 20-25 people, certainly that I noticed, who were fully dressed up in a costume. Now, in America, it would be the 20 to 25 people who were the ones that were not dressed up in the costume, and the chances are they'd all be British. It's something I've discovered a fascinating social, concept, if you like, which is that it's absolutely fine to go and watch a Spider-Man or Batman, or see someone dressing up in a costume and charging around doing impossible things on the TV screen. But as soon as someone dressed up like that walks up to you in the street, you avoid them.
Yeah, well, you do in Britain.
Which is only a percentage of the population, but it's surprised me. Some of the people that have been avoiding me, they're the kind of people that I thought would probably go and see Batman.
Oh, how interesting!
I've had more success with slightly older, I suppose less socially restricted and more accepting people, whereas youngsters, I think, are still kind of a bit, is that cool kind of thing, or is it just a bit sad? I don't know, it's difficult to say, but it's fascinating seeing the reception that the suit has got. But there you go, it's, that's the nature of being a superhero. And actually, largely, I suppose it's a bit of a backhanded compliment, backs up a lot of what I'm saying in my show. In a really strange way.
You're doing the research in the street, as it were.
Yes, after having written the show, but there you go, it proves me right. Scientific analysis.
As I was saying, I really liked Mr. Millennium, and I really liked the exploration that you were going through. So for me, it's a 3-star show, and I think I'd have to call it a sort of bittersweet delight, because it does balance that sadness and humanity against those lighter moments, which you also bring very effectively to it. And go and see it for the song, I say.
Thank you.
Now, another show that we've been to see together was Departure Lounge.
Yes.
Which was cracking.
Amazing.
And indeed, one of those shows which we were talking earlier about, shows which were designed for Edinburgh, a design show by Dougal Irving for Edinburgh, brought up again by a totally different company, given a slightly different slant, or just a different... It was different from the original, and all variants from the original that I've seen so far. In the sense, funny enough, that it was a lot more laddish. Actually, I think they really overplayed. They took the laddism up further, because we saw it, you, me, and another friend of mine, unhelpfully called David as well. And he's a very gentle man, and he said he'd been looking forward to it because it's got a great reputation. But he said at the beginning he was a bit worried about it, because it seems so very laddish. It's about 4 British lads coming back from a sort of Sun, Sex and Sea holiday in Spain, and they're caught in the departure lounge of an airport, waiting for their Ryanair aeroplane to take off because it's delayed due to a series of increasingly unlikely reasons, such as
mostly revolving around missing plastic containers of milk
and catering.
Yes,
but it was very funny, incidentally, as well. But he said it's actually really about the truths of the characters. And so he suddenly realised after about 10 minutes, actually, he did like what was going on. That he was, and whilst these people don't reflect his life at all, because he's not that kind of person, the business it's really about friendships and trust and relationships. And also, they're at that difficult stage of their life. They've just finished school. They're about to go into university. It's the departure lounge for life. That's the allegory going on there.
Indeed.
So he was very taken by it by the end. And I thought that's very interesting because, yes, this is it seems if you take it at face value, it's laddish, but it isn't laddish at all because it's quite sensitive.
No, what it is it's the emotion is. When I say masked, I mean masked in the superhero sense rather than masked in the covered up sense. It is masked with the very loud personalities of the four guys, particularly when they're all sort of quote-unquote remembering their relations with the one female character. And so it is presented as quite brash, quite laddish, typical British yob type culture, but obviously not with only four of them, not the mob culture. But the depth in it is phenomenal, which, having heard... I mean, I haven't seen the original, as you had done, but I do have the soundtrack. I have listened to the soundtrack on a few occasions. I really enjoy it. It's a fantastic score. And that doesn't necessarily come across just from the score, because you don't fully appreciate everything that's going on. But you really do when you add the book in as well. And it becomes a really engrossing show, actually.
Composite whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was really impressed by it. And I thought that the performers were fantastic. Really good voices, actually, because it's not an easy score, that.
No.
They acted it really pretty well on the whole, and they were very good movers as well, because there were combinations of elements of choreographed movement and dance, as well as just regular acting.
There's a lot of athletic sort of jumping off chairs and things.
Huge, and actually that's an enormous credit to the both their vocal strength and ability, of the fact that they were singing a lot of these songs in mid-air.
Yes, whilst doing fairly athletic bouncing around.
Yeah, and it was very, very impressive. And it actually a really good venue for it as well, because it was just large enough. This was the basement, whatever it's called, of
St. Augustine's, in the vault.
St. Augustine's, yes.
Oh no, it's not in the vault. It's just their basement, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't actually remember what it's called anyway. But it was very, very good venue for it, because it was just intimate enough to keep it to the size that it was meant to be, but it was big enough to allow them the scope to mess around and to use the stage to effectiveness.
Yes, they had the constraint of an airport.
Yeah.
Without it being so constrained they couldn't actually move around at all. Yes, you're right.
And of course, it's a small score, in the sense of instrumentally it is scored for two guitars.
Which work feverishly all the way through, though.
They really do. Actually, serious credit goes to the guitarists as well. I mean, I can imagine that in a production of this, they could be overlooked on the simple grounds that they're there all the time providing the accompaniment. And, it's a musical. There's always an accompaniment in a musical. But there's a very difficult one. And one does have a slightly more continuous job. I think the second guitar breaks out sometimes and either provides a form of drumming.
Yes, there's a bit of banging on the
wood,
yes.
Or indeed just drops out and leaves it to one guitar to come in again a few bars later, which is not to say that his job is any easier. But
it also has to do, just slightly completely off the beam, the bing-bong chimes of the tannoy system.
Yeah, well, actually it's fascinating. I hadn't realised, listening to the score, and I'm going to go back and listen to the soundtrack again, how much harmonics there is in this, because that's done with guitar harmonics, and there's an awful lot of guitar harmonics, and there's a couple of the songs that use it, and as you say, the chimes of the airport tannoy are always represented with, so there's 5 notes, there's 3 at the beginning and 2 at the end, which are always these harmonics again. And it's interesting hearing guitar harmonics used, A, as sound effects, and B, quite as much as they are in this.
And effectively.
Yeah.
Well, all over, we thought it was a 5-star show, didn't we?
Absolutely. I think they're coming out of that one, I think I thought about it for about a second, to try and think if there was reason why I couldn't give it 5 stars, and I couldn't find one.
There was nothing it could have done better.
No, really not. I think it was a stunning piece of theatre.
But you've also touched on other musicals in passing as well.
I have, yeah. Well, there are two thus far which I have seen and can comment on. Both of which I will gloss over quite quickly, really, because I think there's limited amounts to be said on one and a lot more to be said on the other, which is actually being taken care of as its own episode. That of which, or at least part of one, which is Sex Ed the Musical, which I interviewed the cast at some length, and I will do a review on of my own at a later point. But I also went to see, which was a very intriguing production, which was a gender-swapped folk rock version of Macbeth, called Apostrophe Beth.
Yeah.
As if it had been chopped, although actually, because of the gender swap, the main character was called Beth and the husband was Mac.
Oh, I see. Nice conceit.
Quite cleverly done, actually. And this was a very intriguing production. I felt that the production itself lacked a little, but that the score particularly held more hope. I felt like it was an hour and a half show, and I felt like the last half hour of the show began to tire a little bit, score-wise. But the first hour, particularly, the score was quite strong. It had very reminiscences, for those who know him, of the musician Voltaire at points, particularly with the Weird Brothers. who for me were the standout of the show. And I think the three guys that played them, I mean, they never, as far as I could see, and I watched them most of the time they were on the stage, they never broke character, and their characters were weird and wacky, and just kind of, they made the universe, and I think that's what the rest of the production now needs to stretch up to. It was an interesting show, and I think it's something that could do with another period of development, and I think if it came back again, it would probably be a lot stronger.
So the Beth is yet to come.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, it's got the potential in there, and I would like to see it. I'd like to see that potential realised. I enjoyed it. I thought it was entertaining, not always for the right reasons, but yeah, there's something in there. I think there's something stronger in there that will come out if they continue to work on it.
Well, David, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to me. I know you're actually off now on business, aren't you?
I am indeed, yes.
Because it never ends here on the Fringe.
Nope.
And indeed, I'm off to see a show. So thank you for talking to me. I hope we'll have a chance to have another chat about the shows we've seen.
I'm sure we will.
Other shows as well. But until then, good luck with Mr. Millennium and all your endeavours.
Thank you kindly, sir.
Musical talk. David Kingsmill there. But now on to something rather different. In fact, not actually a musical, although I was hoodwinked at first. Let me tell you the story. I was making my way down the Royal Mile, which you probably know is the central street where all the performers gather to advertise their shows. You can't walk from one end to the other without being plastered with flyers, possibly free gifts, and seeing people performing. It's a way of showcasing what your show's about. As I walked down one day, I passed a washing line. On it were pegged several flyers. This immediately intrigued me, so I had a look, and the name of the show was We Got Rhythm. Now, obviously, the first thing that comes into your mind under those circumstances is the song I Got Rhythm by George and Ira Gershwin. So, thinking, is this a musical? Let's find out. I strode up to the nearest gentleman who was looking after that particular area. His name was Alex Morgan. What a splendid gentleman he turned out to be. Alex is in fact, in his own right, a very accomplished radio journalist and presenter. And if you're currently at the University of Durham, you may know him as a presenter of Hot Topics on Palatinate TV, and also a regular presenter on Purple Radio, the university radio station. And if you're not at the Durham University, you can hear a great deal of his work online, and it's well worth listening to. The man has a great presence and also a great knowledge of theatre and indeed musicals. But he's also an actor, and he went on to tell me all about We Got Rhythm, a lost play from the 1930s, not actually a musical, but an odd meta-theatre piece in which music is used to convey the message as well as drama. Well, I was intrigued by this, so I went to see the show, but not before interviewing Alex and several other members of the cast about this show, which isn't really a musical, but does take music to illustrate its point about 1930s world politics. Let's hear about We Got Rhythm. Musical talk.
My name's Lucy Smith and I'm producing We Got Rhythm at the Edinburgh Fringe this year. Very exciting.
I'm Alex Morgan and I'm playing a priest and a fascist, two separate characters, in We Got Rhythm at the Fringe this year.
That's multitasking.
Hi, I'm Simon and I am in We Got Rhythm and I am playing a raging racist and a communist.
Very 1930s, good tone.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Zander, and I'm playing Bill, the average workman. He says wearing his shirts and loafers and blue chinos in
middle class.
In We Got Rhythm.
Hi, my name's Hannah, and I am playing a very Margaret Thatcher-esque figure of patriotism, and also the writer of the play in We Got Rhythm. Bit of a twist there.
I think the history of this piece is worth touching upon before we go any further. It is a lost play. Now, a lost play, well, they don't turn up very often. I know we've had Cardenio recently, so you might have been outshone slightly by Shakespeare, but tell me about the piece.
Well, basically, it's a script lost since the 1930s, so we've taken it, and when I'm first reading, Charlie's the director, we looked at it and we were like, okay, this is bizarre, but hey, we can do a lot with it, and we thought, hey, it's perfect for the Fringe. You know, it's short, it's only 30 minutes long, and it's just an intense blast of comedy, fast music. Yeah, it's an insane piece.
Comedy communism, partly, I guess. Absolutely.
With a political message.
But how does a lost play resurface? And let's just get this straight. It's called We Got Rhythm. It's a British political satire, isn't it? It's a British play?
Yeah, and it's by an amateur writer called Nora Ratcliffe, and she's completely unknown, really. And we were just digging through anthologies and happened to come across it. One-act play.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I believe it had an airing once with an amateur company somewhere in the UK, but this is the first time it's come to the world's largest arts and culture festival, and we thought, let's be adventurous. Let's do it. We got a nice feature on the Channel 4 News doing the world premiere of this piece. We've been doing some rather interesting things up and down the Mile, standing on bollards, getting a lot of public attention, as the piece deserves.
Thing is, although we all met at Durham University, a lot of us are going on to drama school, and we're all going on to do things involved in this, production, acting, directing. So it's a very, very professional piece.
I love Durham because I know Dulog very well. I come and see them every year.
Have you seen them in
Bat
Boy?
Yeah. And, you know Doug, do you, by any chance?
Yes, no Doug.
I've been interviewing Doug on this street pretty much every year for the last 3 or 4 years, amazingly. So tell me about the characters that you play. You've mentioned them in passing. There's also a bit of multitasking, so...
There is. Well, certainly the characters that myself and Alex play, they're just very much caricatures of ridiculous political figures, really. So they just kind of use absurd language, absurd movements, kind of real eccentricity to portray a particular kind of idea or concept, whether it be my character Redshirt, who's a raging communist, or Kasich the priest.
Yes, Kasich the priest, and also Millie Clubman, the fascist. He's a bit of a smarmy fascist. He's not a nice chap.
Very few fascists are, I've noticed.
Well, yes, absolutely, especially the ones who wear dinner jackets and open bow ties, as I do. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
But then, in contrast to that, we had the very absolutely
very salty,
talking sort of on very humdrum, monotonous sort of topics. And a bit of dance as well. I mean, even me doing a waltz, that's supposed to be humdrum.
I do love the idea of a political play with music and farce and slapstick. It sounds fantastic.
Well, dancing politicians, what more could you want? seeing.
Do they dance to our tune or not?
Sorry?
Do they dance to our tune, the public?
Well, that is debatable, and that is potentially what the entire crux of the play is. Are we on the same level? And there is a twist in it, which kind of throws everything that you've seen in the play, all of the dance, all of the music, all of the comedy, into a different light, and makes you really question if you'd perhaps approached it in the correct way the first time you've seen it. So it's interesting.
Now, I've got to ask, it's not a musical per se, but I'm told that it's infused with music, so can you explain that? Hello, person.
Hello.
Your name, please.
I'm Lucy. I'm another member of the cast. I've done the choreography for it, and I'm playing Lizzie. The music, we've taken the tracks that were in the script, and then they've also been mixed, so they've got beats on top of them, they've been sped up, something's been done with them.
So they've been made more contemporary, even though they are presumably the original songs from the 1930s, are they?
Yeah, they are, and they've been made slightly more contemporary, kind of a march with a beat on it, something underneath to make it a bit more exciting. And they're done really for atmospheric reasons at the beginning, to bring it, to open the show, and then also for the dancers as well, speed them up, make them a bit snappier.
And would you say the music in the original script, as you see it, was it carefully picked to be evocative, or does it underline the drama?
I think it probably was carefully picked. There's kind of an iron foundry one representing the workers' everyday industry, what they're doing.
Is that just a piece of music generally, or is that a song from the period?
It's a piece of music that Nora wanted in it.
Did she write it herself?
No, but it's in the stage directions. There's certain pieces that she's wanted, and then there's like a scherzo and a Creole love call. There's a number of kind of tunes that are representative of the little sections that she wanted.
It's actually very interesting because the music that Nora picked has kind of changed the way in which we've approached the play. So, for example, my character...
She speaks from the grave, I like this.
I know. Well, we don't actually know whether she's dead or alive, so...
We keep thinking she's here on the Mile.
Wanting her royalties.
Yes. For example, my character is a very harsh character, but the music that is written in to introduce me is actually very kind of light and airy-fairy. It's a waltz, scherzo waltz. So it's added a kind of different layer to the character and the way in which I personally have approached it. So I've approached it as if at one point in the past, before I was hardened against the masses, I was actually a very soft and gentle young woman.
A conviction politician before you became
before I sold my soul.
Yeah. This sounds fabulous. I have to say, you sound to me as though you're doing the most complicated, sped up half hour I can think of. So much. You've told me enough for a 2.5 week show, this.
Yeah.
it's very, very concentrated piece of theatre. Well worth a watch.
But then saying that, we walk down the mile now, I don't think there's one piece of theatre which is just sort of, I'm sort of calling out for a normal piece of theatre now. I've watched so many weird, off the beat, which are great, but I think ours probably, compared to all the musicals and stuff here, we're probably as normal as it gets.
It's just something, something to get your teeth into, really. It's a real discussion piece of theatre, which I don't know whether these other pieces are. You kind of just scream and
I think it's wholly unique. I think it's wholly unique, and it's nice to bring it to the Fringe this year with the infusion of the music, the farce. There's slapstick humour in there. There's choreography. I mean, I dance as a politician in a very smarmy way, and as Hannah said earlier, where else are you going to get that? And so we've got to thank Nora for A, losing the play, and B, allowing us to find it all these years later.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Nora.
Any play allowing somebody to dance in a smarmy way is probably worth the price of admission alone.
Absolutely.
So how can people see it? Let's talk business.
Let's talk numbers.
It's on at 6:25 at Space Surgeons Hall, and tickets are just £5, £4 for concessions. So really, you can't go wrong. And for
half an hour, anyone can fit that into their schedule.
Anyone can fit that into their schedule. Great piece of theatre, and it'll certainly get you thinking before dinner. Something to have a chat over dinner about.
Well, thank you very much all for agreeing to speak to me. I'm delighted to have bumped into you. Thank you very much for putting up your washing line in the middle of the mile. And seriously, I wish you every great success.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
See you there.
You're listening to Musical Talk. Well, there we have it, the cast and crew of We Got Rhythm, a lost play from the 1930s. Its essential message turned out to be that communism and fascism were bad. Well, who knew? I can't say it's a good play, but it was highly enjoyable, and it was great fun seeing it and talking to Alex. And I'm hoping that this won't be the last time you hear Alex Morgan on Musical Talk. But that's it. History is fully mined, at least in the terms of today's episode. Next week's theme is Transformation, where we'll be discussing musicals where changing something about oneself is the narrative dynamic. Tune in next week for that. But surely now is time for us to bid farewell for the moment. So, in a rather florid style, let me wish you well upon your way. Oh, 1,000 felicitations upon your departure, and may hordes of angels usher you in safety through the week until you join us here again at Musical Talk. There we are, that's me mining the past for a suitably florid farewell. And we finish today's show, as promised, with the closing finale of Rob Winlow's excellent Armada the Musical. Goodbye.
It's never far too soon for romance, never far too soon for love, and of course includes the moonlight. What on earth was I thinking of?
It's never too soon for a birthday, another Christmas in June. If we travel the world by Friday, it's never far too soon.
This episode of Musical Talk, presented by Thos Ribbits and David Kingsmill, and produced and edited by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2012, except for the music, where the copyright remains with the original writers.
And now for some historic musical out-talks.
Well, we are now recording, but obviously I'll cut out anything that's not germane. The way I like to start, if I may, is to ask you both to give me your names, the name of the show, very important. You'll be a number of people who forget to mention the show there is. And there will be an opportunity for a plug later on as we go through, by the way, as well, because I understand the business end of it all. So it's name of show and involvement in the show. And then it's not a series of questions, it really is just a conversation. It sometimes takes, 15 minutes is about normal. If we get really into a good conversation, then it will take a little longer. If we all dry up horribly, it will take slightly less time. As long as that's all right for you and your time.
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. Fab. Well, I might as well go straight in. Put shows on and bring them up, because that's exactly what we all need in local government. Yes, that's exactly what the council needs. It's exactly what we need in musical theatre. And I look... go on, please. I've got to ask you this. Do you have a recording of a song that you'd be happy to let us play?
Yes.
Unknown if you want to?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
You tell me which sort of song you want.
Well, a couple would be lovely. I really like the opening song about the, we mix between Rome and
England or Rome.
Yes, and Manipulation would be a lovely song.
So my youngest son was in the show, but my eldest son scored the backing for that.
It was a proper
and produced the backing tracks,
Which one
were very good.
Thank you.
Which one's your son in it?
Will. That's my youngest son. Will there.
Always nice to be spotted on the radio. Well, if you're happy to do... Did I give you my card? Have you got my card?
Yes, I've got your card.
If you wouldn't mind sending me that by email, I'd be very glad. And then I can also let you know when this episode goes out, so you can hear it.
Lovely, yeah.
It might be nice, I was somewhere in the middle of chats, or between this chat and our chat, to actually throw in a little bit of Armada as well, because we could put in just a bit of the chorus, perhaps.
Oh, right.
The Armada chorus.
If you're happy, as long as you don't feel we're just stealing all your stuff.
No, not
It's more exposure for you guys if you're looking to go places.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I'd love that. I'd love that.
Well, was that all right for you?
That's brilliant.
Thank you very
much, sir. Much appreciated.
Lovely to see you.
This was one of them. Sorry, do you mind if I just
break off at any stage?
Marcelina, they're all upstairs, so you can take a violin and just go upstairs.
Sorry, do apologise.
I'm very sorry.
No, it's always fine because I can cut these things out with the wink of an eye, and you've got business to do, so you're doing me a huge favour. So yes,
sorry. Thank you, Marcy. Right, so right.
Musical talk, very simple. It is exactly what it says on the tin. It's not a series of questions. I'm just going to ask you a question, and then from there the conversation will roll or stop embarrassingly, and we'll take it from there. But there is one little thing I like to do. There's two things actually. The first is if you say something you'd rather you hadn't said, if you suddenly realise you've libelled your best friend and family and people like that, say, can we take that out? And I'll be very happy to cut that out because I want you to feel comfortable. This isn't going to be an expose. And the second thing is I actually normally like to go around asking everyone their name, the name of the show and their involvement in it, so everyone knows the voices they're hearing, and then we'll take the conversation from there. Is that all right?
Would you like both names, just out of interest?
For your eternal glory, yes.
I'm just curious. All three you did a video. There was a combination of two.
I think personally you should do the name that you wish to be known as.
Website. He's got his own website.
I'm actually going to go confound expectations and go anti-clockwise.
Right, okay.
I'm afraid I'm going to put this here. I'm going to ask us all to come in a little bit closer, like we're gambling around a roulette table. I'm afraid it's just the distance. I've got short arms and you're a long way away. And I cut out all gaps so you sound fluent and intelligent immediately. Now I'm going to turn this off in a second if you're happy. There's nothing you want in or out apart from the edits as we went.
I'm very happy.
Marvellous. Fabulous. Thank you.
Start again.
We only got about one sentence.
Indeed.
So the Beth is next. I'll say that again. As I was saying, I really liked Mr. Millennium. So for me, I hope you don't mind me saying, it's a three-man.
How many of me are there?
Two of whom weren't there.
Well, I was meant to be doing a three-man show, actually, as it happened.
No, forgive me. You piqued my interest.
No, I know the feeling.
I'm not involved in this show.
You're not?
I'm doing
No,
a
we're
Your moral support, are
We're
you?
doing a documentary.
Yeah, she's my producer.
Oh, crikey.
She's this one.
I feel I'm in the hub of creativity.
It's great, isn't it? We've got the drama and the radio. But Lucy is she's our producer for the play.
Yeah. Would that be all right? Just 5-10 minutes, if that's agreeable to you.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Thank you.
Hi. Well, we've got members of the cast. I'm producing. Our director's in bed.
As long as your director's not in bed with the cast, that's all right.
That's right.
Oh, right, okay.
No,
well, that's not the kind of thing I'm looking for.
It's not quite.
So what's the best thing? Shall I bundle you together? Are you happy to...
Yeah,
Do you want to?
Are you in it as well? Thank you.
Yes. No,
Should
I'm
we
not.
just do like a big?
Could I ask you to stand together? It's just
Yes.
that obviously there's ambient sound here, and that does mean I'm going to have to get fairly intimate in the nicest possible way.
This is an interview. With
I'm musical talk, so it's not actually. I appreciate we're pushing the boundaries a bit because you have music in the show, but
We do.
I've been so persuaded by it. Well, someone hacksaws himself to death by the sound of
he's
it.
juggling a chainsaw.
Is
He was
it?
doing this earlier. I was trying to do an interview, and he did exactly the same thing.
Doesn't matter. Ambient sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you mind standing in a
the
row?
outside?
Is that right? Because then
Yes.
I could do that awful thing on a conveyor belt.
Yes.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask you one by one who you are, the name of the show, and your involvement in it, and then we'll just talk for about 5-10 minutes about it as the conversation goes. Is that all right?
Thank you.
So I'll start here.
So am I just saying what I'm?
Your name and the show. Get the
Hi.
show in,
Yeah,
that's
of
important.
course.
And presumably you're a professional group, aren't you?
We're university students.
So if there's nothing more professional than that, I was one myself, you know.
Well, absolutely. We are up here bright and early, so. Yeah.
So you can, at a pinch, call this a professional premiere, perhaps?
Well,
Say
it's
yes.
a
Yes.
world premiere. It was its
Yeah,
world.
very good.